All right, now let us begin. We are back with a second episode where we are discussing LGBT representation, primarily in the media that we all consume. Now, what do we want to start with, Deer Skull? Because you and I are going to be
Huh?
leading the charge on this.
Um, Give me a minute. I gotta remember my Twitch password here so I can log in.
Oh dear. Hold up, I'm grabbing the notes. Give me 1 second, guys.
Mhm.
But yes, we will be discussing LGBT representation from both current day and kind of what we would have gotten, like, you know, back in like the early 2000s, 2010s, and even the 90s.
I see.
Ooh.
I mean, the best earliest is Elton John, the best musician.
Yeah. Elton John.
I am not familiar with them.
A
The
very
mu-
British man.
That still means nothing to me.
Have you never heard the song? Lotus, have you never heard the song Tiny Dancer, Rocket Man?
Nope.
Border song?
Nope.
Dude, he's like
Okay, but I have a
icon in
question.
rock.
That's the thing. I don't listen to early rock, and even the rock I do listen to is kind of like borderline metal. Besides, when I was
Oh.
younger, I listened to country music. I didn't listen to rock music. It was only until like it probably wasn't even until like the early to mid 2010s when I actually switched over to like more metal music. Actually, no, the late 2010s. That's when I switched over to more metal music. But no, I was listening to country and new age music for most of my childhood and teenage years.
Yep. Yeah, I've kind of listened to country music most of my life as well. Hell, I even still listen to it now, to be honest.
It's kind of
You're
cringy to
both
listen
dead
to
to me.
now. Hey, I don't listen to the new stuff right now because the new stuff is hard to listen to, especially when you realize a lot of those country singers don't really support the LGBT community, especially when
Oh.
they get into the really like Jesus-y songs, and you're just like, oh, no, thank you, I'm good.
The
Oh, I
religious
just
songs
either
I kind of avoid with as much as possible. Mainly because it makes me want to shower.
Yeah.
I just either ignore those or change the radio station.
I always forget people listen to the radio.
I know,
Well,
right?
I kind of have to in the car.
What?
Alright. But let's get on to topic here, guys. We're getting a little sidetracked here.
Ah.
So, representation. There is a lot of media nowadays that does actually have the representation that is really good for, the community.
Mhm.
I'd say one of the well, I wouldn't say it was quite big, but like with the two characters it had was fairly big was with an Adventure Time with Bubbleen.
Oh, I had to disagree. It is the biggest thing. Okay, that is the best ship
Well,
about
you have so I say it's kind of like in the running because even in the early 2010s there was still Steven Universe. And
Yeah.
Steven Universe was admittedly a big thing. It was groundbreaking for what it was because it had that open representation that Cartoon Network was trying to squash. And
Yeah.
okay, so I stopped watching Adventure Time after what was it? Finn was in that kind of slump after he lost his arm when he met his father and then was separated from his father again. I
Ooh.
kind of like stopped watching at that point because I was kind of bored with it.
You're way ahead of where I stopped.
Okay, well then I feel a little bit better, but I basically know
Um,
the basic of what it is, but I don't remember when. I remember Bubbling was kind of foreshadowed earlier in the series, especially with oh, what was it? Ruthless, you've seen the whole Adventure Time, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay,
It was
so
it was confirmed at
I'm
the
just
end.
too
Like the
well, I
very
know
end,
it was
it was
confirmed at
just
the end, but it was foreshadowed throughout the series because you had the episode where they had all their like prized possessions taken away, and then there was like that
Yeah.
tension in those songs between like Marceline and Bubblegum. And then when
Yeah.
they found out
Yeah.
that the T-shirt that was like they thought was Marceline's was actually Bubblegum's, and then we see her
Oh
in
yeah.
that T-shirt again later on when Marceline comes to her for help with getting what was it, Hambo? Is that what the name of her stuffed animal was?
Yeah, it was Hambo.
Yeah, like she
Yeah.
had found Hambo after her, rotten ex sold it. And so like they go back and get it and like just the whole episode was so sweet. Like Bubblegum, yeah,
Oh,
she's still herself or she's that scientific mind. So she's like, "Why do you bother with this? It's so useless. Emotions are kind of, nonsense." But she still helps Marceline in the end and even sacrificing the shirt that she loved so much for Marceline.
Hmm.
And then like we get to see them develop more. Like yeah, it's kind of I'm gonna say it's kind of crappy to see that it was just kissing credits for them, but we still got to see them developed up into the relationship, especially after Bubblegum lost her kingdom. We
Yeah.
get to see them actually, get closer. And then of course the what was the special on HBO? What was it, HBO Max? Where
uh, Distant Lands or whatever?
why is
Yeah.
it that on?
Distant Lands and
That
Obsidian.
was okay. Wait, it was Obsidian. That
Um,
was the one with Marceline and Bubblegum, I believe, right?
Yeah, that one is great. You know, there's one thing that I know that there's some people who I can see the argument that some of it somewhat contradicts the main content. Even though you can easily I can see easy arrangement of when events happen.
Well, yeah, especially considering like Marceline and the Bubblegum are technically like old beings too, so they've lived a long
yeah.
life.
And also, one thing I'm trying to comprehend is people having the theory that they eventually in the after story, Distant Land or something, one of those big stories, that they hinting that Bubblegum is like dead.
Oh,
When
I
I'm
think that
like,
was Distant Lands with where Finn dies, essentially.
yeah, I really don't think she's dead. I honestly can't believe it. I
I think
kind of have an
she's
hard
just
time
kind of
believing
moved
it.
on from the kingdom personally, because like
Yeah.
yeah, we see a statue of her, and then like Peppermint Butler has her crown, but I don't necessarily think that means that she's dead. It's just more like she's probably moved on from the Candy Kingdom, is now off doing her own thing, and just doesn't plan on returning. That's personally what I
Now, I
think.
can, yeah, yeah. I personally think they were trying to foreshadow that yeah, she might be dead, but kind of do the whole yikes, she was never dead in the first place.
I can see that. Because then you still have that whole trope of like killing the gays that a lot of people don't like, which kind of falls into like, oh, would you call it negative representation? Or essentially, like at the end of the story, the queer character dies, and it's just bound to happen. I know a lot of older media was like that. Like any character that was seen as queer would die at the end. I know,
Mm.
especially when it comes to things like Hell of a Boss. We get some really good representation there because we have the main duo. I say main power couple essentially. Who do we got here? We have Spook. You have the ghost. We have the ghost here. Ah, yeah, puppet. I see. We have ghost here, Skull.
Oh, hello, welcome. Sorry, I was dealing with two children.
Oh, you're good. But like with Hell of a
Yeah.
Boss, we do have Stolas and Blitz, which is it's just great in general. It's a dysfunctional couple. They're queer. Stolas is most likely like a gay man, even though people are kind of like fighting if he's actually bi or gay. But I think he's just a straight out gay man, personally.
I I wouldn't be surprised if he was full blown gay.
And like, oh, puppet, Ghost just made the account too. But like, I definitely see him more as a gay man personally, just because um I know some people would argue, but he has a wife, he has a kid, and I'm just like, that doesn't mean that he ever loved his wife or he felt anything towards her.
Also, one thing is like we don't see him going after women. Also, that
I
many
mean,
women.
come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
There's
That
tons of
was the key hint to me, at least.
there's tons of men and women who married a person of the opposite sex and found out they were gay later in life.
Mhm.
Exactly. That's why
Yeah.
I lean more towards him being a gay man than him being bisexual cuz I don't know, a lot of him just feels more like he's just a gay man to me personally, but I don't know. It's hard to say cuz there'll be those people who make the argument like, but he has a wife and a kid, there has to be some love. I'm like, "Ah, no. There doesn't have to
Yeah,
be any love."
he doesn't seem very happy with his marriage
Oh, he
in the
doesn't seem
show.
happy at all. I liked one little detail when it came to Stolas cuz someone had pointed out that whenever he experiences like strong emotions, that's when you actually see the pupils form in his eye, like the white pupils, and like all the red. And in the Osmodius episode in episode 7, with the part 1 of the finale, you see that whenever Osmodius points out that hey, you used to have like a really hot wife and a kid, when he looks, yes, gay burb, when he looks towards Stella, like you see that kind of concern, like oh no. But then when he looks towards Octavia, you actually see more intense emotion because the white forms in his eyes as he looks like scared. So like there's obviously something there for like Stella. I wouldn't say it's love. It's more like maybe fear or concern or worry. But there's definitely a lot more of that towards Octavia with that love for her at the very least. Obviously, like a very fatherly way, mind you. At least I would hope so. But some people on the internet would make you think otherwise. But you know,
Those people, get the fuck out of here. Those people need
Yeah.
to get the fuck out of there. Like, get the fuck out of here.
and then like along with the Hell of a Boss, we also have Husband Hotel, where Charlie is in a relationship with Vaggie, and then of course you have Angel Dust too. And Angel Dust is
Oh,
best boy.
Angel
they're
Dust is
all together. Huh.
And I know,
Suspected.
go ahead, Ruthless.
I suspected Maggie and Charlie, but Angel Dust. I was like, might be, might not be. I wasn't like dead set on like a assumption with.
You know, it's funny. I'm the exact opposite, where I saw Angel Dust as gay right away, and I didn't realize that Charlie and Vaggie were in a relationship until it was pointed out.
I kind of noticed that Charlie and Baggy were in something of a relationship because one, when the news anchor was like, "I don't touch the gays," that was like a really big thing
Yeah,
right there. And then you
Well, that's
have
when I
yeah,
realized, but before
welcome
that,
back,
no.
Ghost. I kind of was like, especially with extremely how supportive they were. Cause like I know friends can be supportive, but like there's also like a lot of touching and like you know just that
yeah.
physical contact that you usually get more with people who are in relationships. Especially with like it'll be all right. Like they seem calmed by each other's presence and things like that. Like they just really lean on each other and like try to help each other. But the one I personally like, and I'm gonna share this right now, is Alistair, because Alistair is actually asexual. That one was confirmed by Vivzy herself that
Now,
Alistair
what
is
can you do?
asexual.
What can you do, my effeminate fellow?
I can suck your dick.
No.
I mean,
Your loss.
I
It's like the
mean,
best scene.
it was, and when I saw that scene, I was like, yeah, and my suspicions were correct.
Well, that or Alistair was like technically straight, I guess. I know like Angel does has a more like effeminate body, obviously, but he is gay. So it could have meant that Alistair was just like, you know, straight and wasn't interested into guys. But like no, like later it was confirmed that he was asexual by Vivzy, and that just he it's just so cool. I also find it kind of funny to see a asexual demon, but it works
I was either
very
thinking,
perfectly for him. Go ahead, Ruthless.
Yeah.
like Demi or Ace, like Demi or Ace if he wasn't Ace, but I was like had a strong feeling that he was Ace.
Same. But aside from the wonderful adult animation of Has Been and Hell of a Boss, there was still the big one on Cartoon Network that was kind of surrounded in a lot of trouble with production and everything else. But Steven Universe had a lot of like LGBT kind of characters. And that kind of ran in like the mid 2010s to like kind of the late 2010s, kind of.
Yeah. Well,
And
I mean, there were episodes in certain countries that were like censored or just full on not aired. Like Ruby and Sapphire's wedding episode. That didn't air in Russia.
or like with the censorship, especially when it came to like obviously Ruby and Sapphire, because they got censored a lot. One of
Hmm.
the biggest things they did with Ruby is that they would give him like a mustache and a deeper voice with the censorship to actually make him look like to make her look like a guy. Um, which I think it's it bothers me, but
Yeah.
it
Then
was
again, it's
really cute.
Russia.
Well, it wasn't just Russia. There was a lot of countries that did that. Yes, they gave
Yeah.
Ruby a mustache. Like if you look up some of like the censorship screenshots, you'll see like a freaking mustache on Ruby and it's great.
I mean, they didn't show any of the fusion scenes, I don't think.
Fusion was like a kind of a weird topic though cuz like some people saw it as like the gems having sex, which I think is where's Scarlet's
They were
mustache?
that's stupid. They reproduce asexually. It was shown in series.
I wouldn't even call it a well, would you really call it asexual? Like they're just planting like seeds of gems into the earth and they're stealing the life force of like other planets. I think it's not
Well,
quite asexually. I think it's more like creating the seed and then incubating it a little bit differently. I don't know. It's weird.
I mean, either way, the process doesn't involve sex, right?
I don't want
So,
to know why so much of me says corner right now, but
well, I'm just saying. No, that's. I'm trying to like agree to the point that like I think
I
it
know
would
it
be
just
considered
sounds weird coming
asexual for
from you.
sex.
I'm just saying that now.
Yeah, it's just the way you word things sometimes, Raptor, kind of.
Yeah, we're
Um,
just trying to be nice here. Okay,
on the
see,
topic
even
of like
Ghost agrees. Ghost
back on the
agrees.
topic of representation and stuff, this isn't necessarily like gay representation,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of characters that were supposedly confirmed as trans in My Hero Academia. Um, Tiger, for example, one of the there's like this group of 4 cat-themed heroes. Tiger is a trans woman, apparently.
Apparently, so they may or may not be.
Well, everyone, like, everything I've heard, I've never actually looked into it, but it's.
The big buff dude, Ghost says, like buff cat boy.
Yeah.
But then like they say that
Oh, wait,
they're
I got it
trans
backwards. Tiger is trans man.
trans man. All right, but you don't ever see that, like, because you said apparently.
I mean, the wiki says it.
Oh, well, hard to
Wait,
say.
hold on. I have the official, if I could find it, I've got the official book with all the character profiles and stuff.
Okay.
I know a lot of people are gonna give me shit for me saying this, but if they just say, "Oh yeah, they are," and never show it on screen, I'm kind of like, then why are you even telling us? Like, just
Well,
show,
okay,
don't tell.
so I'm gonna say that right now because as someone who is a writer, a creator, it's not always important to the story to have it really put into full detail, but it can
That's
always
fair.
be a part of someone's character. So I'm just gonna use this for reference. So I was reading an indie book. I'm not gonna say who it is, who they were, and what the title is because I don't want people to get the wrong idea. But they were trying to obviously bring more representation for LGBT characters, which is always good. However, as much as I commend them for doing it, there was a lot of scenes where it could have been done a little bit better, and times where it was just said out loud to like as kind of like unnecessary exposition. So sometimes it's better just not to actually include it in the story if it's not relevant towards the story. But still kind of have it as part of the character. You can still like demonstrate through the text. Again, the show don't tell kind of thing going on. That's usually best to do. If you can show that they're like trans or gay or bi or anything like that, then it's far more believable when you say outside of the text that they are this. Um, Again, actually, that kind of brings
Yeah.
me into what I want to like briefly mention while Skull does their research. Um, with Overwatch, we saw like Tracer was gay. The poster girl for Overwatch is gay, and we actually got to see that in a comic. I don't remember what the comic's name, but I remember Tracer was trying to get a gift for Emily, and we actually got to see them together. And for as much as I can tell, they had good chemistry. But the one that really got people heated was when they announced that Soldier 76 was gay. And personally, for me, I thought it was cool that Soldier was gay. I mean, he seemed like he was. I'm not gonna lie. There's just a certain way, I don't know why, there's like a certain air about him. And even knowing that he's gay, I'm like, I can feel it. I can definitely feel it from him. That may be just because I look at too much like Reaper and Soldier and stuff like that, but that's just me. But I remember there was a scene, I think it was in a comic, I don't know which one it is, where he's looking at a picture of it, what looks like with him and someone else in their younger days. And a lot of people like speculated who this person could be, but personally, I feel like that might be him and then like an ex-boyfriend or something along those lines. Again, I don't know if it's really been confirmed who it was, but to me, it feels like Soldier kind of like reminiscing as he looks at an old photograph of himself in his like younger days when he's like
Oh,
you know. Did you find it, Skull?
okay, so every single source I've found has said he's a trans man.
Okay.
I have not found one that said otherwise.
Okay.
So I'm gonna make the assumption that it's true, considering I can't find anything that says anything otherwise.
Okay, fair enough. People with
That's one
TPC.
thing I find interesting is with like characters and stuff. Um, just representation,
Yeah, because it can
especially
easily
like trans
go.
representation.
Yes. One I want to bring up is like in Fate Apocrypha, where you have Mordred. This one gets me a little heated myself because even though it's not explicitly said that Mordred is a trans man, it's actually very clearly stated that he is uncomfortable being referred to as a woman. Because even when he's summoned by his master, the first thing his master points out is like, I would have never imagined that Mordred was a woman, and the moment he does, Mordred turns his blade on his master and threatens him, says, "If you ever refer to me as a woman again, I will kill you." No, yeah, Ghost. Mordred in Fate Apocrypha is a trans man. He makes it very clear from the beginning that he doesn't like to be referred or seen as a woman. And you see it multiple times because, like, when he's fighting Jack the Ripper, Jack gets in close and sniffs Mordred, and they're just like, "We knew you were a woman." And you could see the agitation on his face whenever they call him a woman. It's a very clear thing. Now, Arthur is a little more muddied, I think, because I think Arthur in the series is referred to as a she, though I could be wrong. But it kind of bothers me with Mordred's case because people still refer to him as a her. And I'm like, no, that's not the case. It's kind of like the whole thing with Astolfo, too. How there's people that just don't really know how to address Astolfo as the gender fluid icon that he is, and the trap.
Uh, well,
Yes.
either way, they're really cute.
Yes, we know Arthur.
I've heard multiple sources say they're a boy, but I don't know.
I think they are supposed to be like canonically they are gender fluid, which means they can obviously be either like they can oh, what's the word I'm looking for, Skull?
Fluctuating dysphoria,
Well, that too.
where they
But
can
like
feel one way or another,
right, they kind of like fluctuate
or
in
neither.
how they I
Feel and express.
feel that's it. Thank you. I couldn't find the words. Thank you, express. How they could express themselves, which could be either like masculine or feminine. Obviously, in Fate Apocrypha, we see it a little more on the feminine side. Well, I think still referred to as a guy. There was actually a funny scene where with like Jeanne d'Arc where she had assumed Astolfo was a woman. So whenever she actually sees Astolfo naked and looks down at like his their genitals, she screams, not realizing that biologically they are a male.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny. I felt bad for Jeanne d'Arc at that moment. It's like, you poor sweet child. It's okay. But on top of like representation and people getting a little heated about some of it, I wanted to bring up Dragon Age real quick, especially Dragon Age 2. So one of the things I like about Dragon Age is that it still had like well like kind of like bisexual slash pansexual love interests, which I mean we see a lot during games, don't we, Skull? Especially like Stardew Valley.
No comment.
Anyway. Where like with Dragon Age 2, they got a lot of heat. Yeah, Ghost expects you to comment, so we'll get to that later.
No.
Too bad.
I don't comment.
Too bad. But we get in Dragon Age 2, like all the love interests are pansexual, essentially, or bisexual, because I guess it doesn't really matter. But a lot of people got really mad about that. They're just like, they didn't take the time to like really consider that and just did whatever. Looking at the emo goth boy, Sebastian. Yep, there's your answer right there.
Hades. There is a gay romance option in Hades through the character Thanatos. The only thing that sucks is he's the hardest character to romance out of the 3 options.
I believe it. It's Thanatos.
But like,
dead.
But romancing Thanatos is really cute at the same time because it's been shown in canon that him and Zagreus grew up together.
Smooch the god of death.
Smooch the god of death.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you're doing over there. I mean, yeah, like, okay, so let me ask you, what's it like romancing Thanatos? Is it more like, is it just the childhood friends to sweethearts kind of thing, or?
In Hades, hold on.
Putting a pause in that. So I can turn to Raptor and Ruthless, I assume, on this matter. But what about the Bethesda games?
Oh yeah. Well, in regards to Fallout 4, I'm not really sure how much it would count because you have the option to play as either a male or female character, but
Yeah.
no matter what you choose, you can still romance someone of the same gender.
Oh,
Same
it's
as
the same
the
way in
opposite gender.
Skyrim too. Like literally, as long as you help the person and you're wearing an amulet of Mara, it doesn't necessarily matter what gender they are. Because obviously you can still have like same-sex relationships in Skyrim. I find it kind of funny because the way they say this for Skyrim is like there's really no room for love and romance in Skyrim, given how dangerous like the region is. So a lot of people tend to just marry when someone is ready to settle down, essentially. Because it's usually because the way they go about it is like, oh, you're wearing an amulet of Mara? Cool. Are you interested in me? Cool. Let's get married. That's literally all it is. There's no romance at all in Skyrim, but like, yeah, you can essentially have like same-sex couples, and it's great.
Damn.
Well, it's not really that hard in Fallout 4 either, granted. You just really have to like do shit.
Just
Fuck.
do some things of what
So
some
it
of them
could be
have
almost
like
as simple as like a fetch quest, pretty much.
Well, some of them have likes and dislikes. They're
Yeah.
different, and you just like conform to their
Brain
likes
cell.
enough. The more you conform to their likes, the more your relationship goes up.
I don't know. It sounds like
eventually.
there's still more work that takes out in Fallout 4 because as your way you're describing it for both of you guys, is that you have to actually put in work. You have to like get them to like you. You have to make sure you don't like get them to hate you and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
But
but even then, it's not that hard.
yeah, but like in Skyrim, all you have to do is like a simple
It's
fetch quest, and they're like, "Hey, I'll marry you." They're like, okay,
Hmm.
so the
like
first one that comes to my mind is a blacksmith in Markarth. I think Gorza, I think her name is. She's an orc, and she literally asks you just to find a book, The Last Scabbard of like I think it's Alkosh. I don't know, something along those lines. Oh, I think it's maybe it's Akatosh. I don't know, but as long as you go find it, you bring it back to her, and you have an amulet of Mara around your neck. She'll be like, "Oh, you're interested in me? Cool, let's get married." That's literally as easy it is. I think some of them are like as easy as like getting to a fist fight with them. I was it Uthgrid? I don't know. There's like a woman in Whiterun in the Bannered Mare. Like if you just go up to her, fight her, and she'll marry you.
Seriously?
Seriously, like she'll be like, "I bet you're not as tough as me," and you're just like, "Bet, I'll show you I'm tougher than you." And then you get into a fight and you win, and then after that it's like, "Oh hey, I'll marry you."
Oh my
That's
god, and I
that's also
thought
how you
Fallout 4 was easy.
fight to the marriage. It's great,
Fight
and then
for marriage.
you get 200 gold in the process too, which makes it even better. Oh my gosh.
Yes! You
And
get paid to marry someone pretty much.
pretty much. And then like if you become a Thane of a regent, like a hold, so say like you become a Thane of like Markarth the Whiterun, you can essentially marry your house Carl too without any effort. They
Huh.
just send it like anything that can become your companion, damn near, you can marry in Skyrim. But I will say I don't know how it works in Fallout 4, but like if you kill your husband or wife, you can't remarry without mods. So be careful.
you can't kill
Yeah,
the
companions are
you
invincible in
can't kill
Fallout
the
4.
companion.
Well, lucky for you guys, because in Skyrim they're invincible to everything but you. You're
Yeah.
the only thing that can kill your companions. So essentially, if you're out adventuring with your husband or wife, you can easily kill them if they get in the way. And they always get in the way, so it's better just to leave them at
Huh?
home.
Well, they're invincible even to the player in Fallout 4. It's
Yeah, no, not in
amazing.
Skyrim. So which is kind of disappointing. But
Uh,
on the
Skull just
topic of
left the voice
video
chat.
games, it's fine. They'll rejoin. They're probably busy. But on the topic of video games, I want to go into The Sims 4 or like The Sims in general. The Sims is just
Mhm.
fun when it comes to attraction and sexuality and fun things like that. So like obviously like with the older games, it was still kind of you know, not quite as developed as The Sims 4 is right now. Like obviously you can still have your same sex partnerships in like The Sims 2 and 3. I remember I think it was called something else in like the very first Sims game. I think it was just like a union, not like an actual marriage. But I believe in Sims 3 that's like it was actually like same-sex marriage in that game, but then like the Sims 4 was something else entirely. So the first thing they did was a big plus to the trans community where
Hello?
welcome back, we're talking about the Sims 4 now.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh! Yay! Sorry, I don't know what happened to the internet. It just dropped completely, so now I'm running off my hotspot.
Oh, you're fine. But like with the Sims 4, it was like a big plus, I believe, to the trans community, if I'm not mistaken, Skull, where you
Yes.
could like
Yes.
fully customize your Sims as like what if they can get others pregnant, or if they can get pregnant, or neither, if they can like pee standing or sitting, if they can
Pronouns.
pronouns was a recent one. You can change the pronouns of the Sims to he, she, they, them, that kind of stuff.
Really?
Yes, they actually just added that too. The pronouns update was very recent.
Wow. I'll have to check that out because it's been a hot minute since I played The Sims 4.
It's definitely had a lot of changes. Like I said, you'll find that you can actually customize your Sims to the point where, like, again, like if they're actually trans, which is really cool, because then
Ooh.
you can have like Sims that have basically transitioned, and things like that, which is like really cool because it gives a little more, yeah, a little more to the game. And then on top of this, Sims like this kind of almost backfired on them a little bit because again, the way that people take it is always different, but when they had announced the wedding pack, the game pack that they had made, the poster couple was actually a lesbian couple.
Oh yeah.
Which, I mean, that's always fun. I really like the story of it too, where she has like the bride asks her best friend to be her like sim of honor, and the friend is heartbroken because she had a crush on the friend, and she's gonna lose her to a guy. But then, like as like the trailer goes out, the friend realizes that she's not really meant to be with the guy because like they don't really get along, I guess you could say, or at least they don't see eye to eye. And at her wedding, before going up to the altar to like go forward with the wedding, she goes to her maid of honor, essentially, and then just like Frenches her in the middle of the wedding altar, the wedding
Oh,
aisle. It was kind of great.
I have not seen that. That is interesting.
It was great. And then like in that pack you get a lot of like LGBT kind of representation options. Like I think a really cute thing is like with the wedding dresses, they brought in some LGBT kind of styled ones, even for the little kids too. Oh, it was adorable. And then like some of the wedding toppers
Ooh.
too are LGBT themed, and it was really nice. The
Ooh.
only thing that kind of tainted the pack a little bit in terms of like the representation is how EA handled it when it came to Russia, because Russia is obviously has some certain strict rules when it comes to LGBT
Yeah.
marketing and things like that. But they thought it would be banned in Russia immediately, which, to my understanding, wouldn't have been the case since in Russia The Sims is rated as an M game, which, I mean,
Really?
as far as I'm aware, that's what I had heard. Because, I mean, when you look at the context of the game, there is essentially alcohol, there is sexual themes, nudity. Like, to certain people, these are things that are purely mature themes.
Oh yeah. Well, then again, Russia probably doesn't go by ESRB. They probably go by like Peggy or something, right?
I'm not sure. That'd have to be something you look up, because I'm not gonna admit to being an expert in this. I have a very surface level understanding of these things. I have done very little to no research. Everything I have heard has been through the grapevine, so I can't say for certain about certain things. I can just give like a basic understanding of what I know, which isn't always the best thing, but like, some that's just how people learn things, and hopefully
I'm like
push them a bit.
I'm like 90% sure that the UK at least uses the Peggy system. Pretty sure a few other countries in Europe at least as well.
Maybe, I'm not sure. I just know how it works in America because I am an ignorant American, for the
I
most part.
have small. I have a
I
small
gotta
update on the
admit,
tiger thing.
I know nothing about the rating systems mainly because it's one of the things that just doesn't 100% like
I
affect
think
me
Ghost is
that
with
much.
you on that one, Skull, because Ghost is just like Canadian moment.
Yeah.
That's that's definitely fair. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, Skull in Canada, don't you go by like ESRB ratings for games?
Let me look at my game cases and we'll tell you right away.
All right, sounds good.
Yes.
I know the
Yes.
US, the way that the US started with their ratings, it was like all corporations, like huge
Oh,
corporations.
back on the topic of
Oh,
games before I got interrupted by family. Romancing Thanatos.
Oh yes, and Hades.
hmm.
Yes, it's a quite a lengthy, process actually.
Okay.
With Romancing Thanatos, you have the chance of encountering him in rooms, and he'll challenge you to essentially a little competition to see who can kill more enemies in the room. And I believe it's 6 or 7 times you have to best him, and then give him a gift when he goes back to the House of Hades after you die. You talk to him, you give him a gift or whatever, and that deepens your relationship. And you have to keep doing that until a very specific quest triggers.
Mm.
And
Wow.
after that quest triggers, you get this thing that allows you to be like, hey, do you want to be more than just friends? And then
Oh,
you can say yes or no, and if you say yes, they do it, and it's like not even a joke.
okay,
It's
so
never actually shown, but it's very, very clearly implied.
that begs the question: do you have to best him 7 times in a row, or just 7
It
times?
doesn't have to be in a row,
Okay.
but it's 7 before you get to deepen the relationship, and then you get to proceed to challenge him and gift him more, and then eventually he'll just be in the House of Hades every time you encounter, like whether you encounter him or not afterwards.
I see.
Hmm.
Yes.
That definitely sounds like quite the process. It kind of reminds me of Romancing a Dragon Age Inquisition. That's oh my gosh. It requires you like to talk to the people, give them very specific gifts, do certain quests for them, just like to progress your relationship even further, and things like that. Which is quite frustrating in what is it called? Dragon Age Inquisition. I do like it though, because in Inquisition you release like they I wouldn't say quite put a little more thought into it than like because I personally like the Dragon Age 2 options more because I have Fenris and Fenris is best boy. Uh, but in Inquisition we actually have like people with defined sexualities like Iron Bull who is pansexual, Dorian who is a gay man, Sarah who is a lesbian. I believe not Colin. Colin, who is a straight man, but he'll only be in a romance with, I think, either a human or an elf. So, like, they have, like, defined races and, like, genders that they will actually, you know, be allowed to be romanced with. Or, like, even, Solus? Solus, that's it. Solus will only romance female elves. That kind of thing. And then like in the background you get so like if you don't romance like Dorian or Iron Bolt, they end up in a relationship together, and I think that's kind of cool. I just don't like the game, but some of the characters are cool. It kind of reminds me of Fenris and Isabella from Dragon Age 2, but the skank's not allowed to touch Best Boy. I'm gonna say that now.
Hmm.
What's going on over here? Oh, I see the hero analysis thing you posted just now.
Yes. I'm
Yes.
happy. I'm incredibly happy about this.
Now I'm gonna carry on to the next little thing that I don't know how many of you read, but I want to bring up some recent like LGBT books I have read that I do thoroughly enjoy and find that some of you might enjoy. Skull, you especially, since a lot of them do involve gay men. Yes, I said it.
Oh,
Okay, so
oh.
the first one I'm gonna mention is "We Are Totally Normal." I'm gonna have to look up the author name here in a little bit, but essentially it's a coming of age teenage story, and so like what I actually really love. Any for my bias, Ghost, you're gonna have to let me know what exactly for. But in "We Are Totally Normal," it's a coming of age story, which I'm gonna say this right now. I really do enjoy that a lot of books coming out now are more like teenagers in high school still who are coming to realize that their sexuality may not be what they always thought it was, or what their gender may not always be what they thought it was. Um, so I do like that brand of representation. Because it definitely wasn't something that I got when I was in high school, and it probably would have helped me if I did. Um, Here it is. I don't know how to say that last name, but I'm going to butcher it. But Naomi Kana- Kanakia, I might have said that wrong, but they wrote "We Are Totally Normal," and it's basically this young man, or I the way they had presented in the book was as a man, but how they were questioning if they were straight or gay, especially after they start having feelings for another guy. And then they started questioning, am I just being this type of person so I can impress my friends and actually be in their friend group? It's really nice. It's definitely those kind of questions you would ask, especially if you were kind of a little more on the insecure side. Another one, a lot of another ones. Jasmine
Hmm.
Throne is more of a fantasy one, and it's a F/F, so it's a lesbian romance. But basically, I don't remember too much about it because it was a long time ago. Well, not really a long time ago, but it was a while. Um, but essentially, we have this girl from a forbidden world that was essentially like killed off, and this exiled princess who is basically being held prisoner because her brother's like, you need to learn your place and actually like essentially die for your cause. And the two end up, coming closer together. They help each other, and it's supposed to be a series. I haven't really looked into the second book because I kind of forgot that it was supposed to be a series. Mostly because I liked how the first book ended. Like they both went their separate ways to go their own path and essentially like you know, just try and make the their empire a better place. Getting into some of the M/M books, we have Consorting with Dragons. Which this one was cute, Skull. I'm not gonna lie. Like you would absolutely adore this book. Oh my goodness. First of all, the main character was fucking amazing. He was witty and sassy and just so full of personality that I couldn't help but smile whenever he would do something silly, and it was great. But he was very much that very like small town kind of guy. I say in quotes because again, it's a fantasy book. It's dragons involved in it, but he is able to essentially buy his way into this like selection process where he's gonna get married off to some sort of nobility. But little does he
Hmm.
realize that the king takes interest in him, and as much as he wants to be with the king, because feelings and whatnot, uh, he's like, but I can't be the king's consort. That has so much weight to it. But then, like, and he's like, what about the kids? The king's kids might not like me. But as the story progresses, he comes to realize that yeah, he does love him, and that as much as like people try to like threaten him and be like, you need to stay away from the king. He needs to do what's right for the kingdom. He does obviously end up coming together with him, which is really sweet. Like, it's really cute seeing that kind of stuff. Um, so, and then this series I'm going to mention, I've only read the first book. I haven't read the other two yet because I haven't bought the other two yet. But it's Cinders to Ashes, which is essentially a gay retelling of Cinderella, but with a twist. Um,
Oh
uh,
boy.
Oh
oh,
my god. I think you told us about this before,
I
right?
have, and I'm going to do it
Mm-hmm.
again. So
Oh god.
basically, the Cinderella of this story, I don't remember what his name is, but he's essentially Miss Bison. Um, he's essentially a half fae, half human, and they're like the whole kingdom is at war. Not really at war with the fae, but like they've been cut off from the fae side of the country essentially, and like everything around them is dying because they don't have access to the life magic that the fae do, and the fae is kind of like hoarding it. And like everything kind of gets kicked off whenever the main character takes some of the magic from like the Feywild that's like magically constructed and uses it to make his family's farm grow, whereas nothing else is growing. And then you have like the king who comes across this strange little servant boy who is just so lean and tall and just the descriptions were amazing. Like it was borderline romance and erotica and it was fucking great. And also I don't care for sex scenes in male erotica, but I'd say it was pretty good, personally. It left on a cliffhanger, which I think is what gets me sometimes, because when things leave off on cliffhangers, I really don't give two shits about continuing on with the next book. I really don't. But I mean, it was good. I mean, it's a short read. It was only like a 5-hour listen on Audible, but it was good. I will admit that. Like the characters are good. The romance is interesting. It does feel genuine, especially considering the environment that they're in. Um, the next one, like, okay, so this doesn't have gay lead characters, but I am going to mention this because it does feature a trans woman in it, and they are
Cool.
given a fair amount of screen time. Well, I wouldn't say screen time, but like, they have a presence, which is the Bone Witch series, by Reen Shipeko. I believe it's how you say her name. I'm terrible with names, but it's really cool because you have this main character who is becoming a learning to become like a proper bone witch, and she makes friends with. In the first book, they are obviously a male, and they make it clear to her that they've never really liked, you know, what is like what would have to become of them if they were discovered to have magic, which I believe was a Death Knight or something along those lines. Um, but with the main character's help, they are able to actually become an Asha, which is basically like a female magic user essentially. And I will say this: the series, I believe, has a lot of like, I want to say like it's definitely got some Asian influences. I don't want to say which culture exactly, but you can tell there are some Asian influences with the culture wise. And I'm not going to say what it is in case it's wrong. So, but there's definitely some Asian influences, which is really cool and I love it. But throughout the series, you see this person who is known as Lick. All right, later, go see ya. But they are basically given enough screen time where it is addressed that they do enjoy being an Asha. They enjoy the more feminine things. And later on, I think it's in the final book, Shadow Glass, where the main character is just like, if you want to be seen as a woman, I will address you as a woman. And from that point on, they address Lick as Lady Lick. From that point on, and like she is seen as a woman, despite what she was born as. And I thought it was really sweet. I wanted to mention that because that's good representation right there, and I loved that.
Oh my god, I'm sorry for interrupting this, but look at the art Ghost sent in the server.
Oh, that's cute. That's really cute. I'm gonna have to.
I'm
We'll
gonna
have to do
ask
something
them
about
if
it later.
we can feature it on the Twitter.
Yes, do that. So like going back into uh the books, another one. So this one's by an indie author. Um, I'm gonna have to get her name because I really liked the story. Again, this is another
Oh,
romance. This is an F/F one, but it's called A Shot to the Heart. I believe that's what it was called. Um, it was something. I believe it was A Shot to the Heart. I'm gonna have to find it because there's quite a bit of books by this. Is it you? Here it is. It's Marie Davis. Mary Davis. And I really liked it because the main character essentially is a I want to say it was like an ER response. Um and then the love interest is this woman who had just started as like a, I wouldn't say a receptionist, but like kind of like a clerk. And the two end up getting close, but like because of one of their issue, like the ER response, woman's issues with like I guess kind of commitment, but more like being pushed away. She ends up pushing the other person away because of her job. But it gets resolved really quickly because I mean it's a romance. These things get resolved fairly quickly, and you got to remember that. But it was still really cute seeing it. But even as like fast paced as it was, it felt very genuine to see their romance, and it was really cute. Some of these books recently are just really good. And the last one I want to mention before moving on to the next thing is The Never Tilting World. This one's also by Rin Shapeko, where one of the main characters and her love interest are, an F/F couple. They're a lesbian couple. And it's quite cute because they do get quite a bit of screen time because obviously, like, one of them is the main characters. The main characters are a set of twins. One of the twins is in love with like a guy, whereas the other twin is in love with obviously a woman. And it's, oh my gosh, I love seeing the relationship grow, especially since you have this like really unsure and quiet girl who's in love with this very, I wouldn't say aggressive, maybe abrasive. I think abrasive is more the right term, but it's just such a cute pair. And it's so, I think what's the best about all these is just how normalized LGBT is within these worlds. Like, no one questions it, really. unless it's like the coming of age stories, then I mean, it's a little different. Because you're young, you're in high school, you're gonna be questioning things. So like, kind of like with like We Are Totally Normal, how the main character questions his sexuality and his like identity as a whole because of like the environment he's in and everything like that. But it's still really cute to
Mm-hmm.
see. And I do highly recommend some of these books. Like, just dive into the LGBT genre in general. It is basically a genre at this point, with everything that there is. But it's
Um,
great.
I have another book.
Ooh, what do you got?
The book is called Stranger Than Fanfiction. And I read this a couple years ago, but not only does it explore LGBT themes in the main characters, two of which are gay and one of those boys is trans, but it also talks about just like fandom.
Okay.
And with the relationships, or not relationships, the characters, um, some of them are in the closet and struggling to come out with this, and just kind of like what it would do to their family and friendship, and what would happen essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember it too clearly, but I do remember very distinctly this little scene in which two of the main characters were sitting on, I think it was a shed or something, but they started talking and they basically came out to each other.
That's really sweet. That's really
Yeah,
cute.
it was really cute, and I think by the end of the book, it was implied too that they might be trying for a relationship.
Aww.
Mm-hmm.
That's cute.
Oh.
Chinese
And
friends.
once you're done, let me know. Because then we're gonna finish up with this segment and move on to the next one.
Yeah, that's really all I've got.
Okay. So, a quick little mention before we move on to the next segment. Shadow Fate, which is a small indie game I had played recently, and these guys had seen me play. There is an LGBT character, Wyatt, who is best boy. And I highly recommend that if you are interested in like RPG games, I'd give that one a go because it's a fun game, and Wyatt's a fucking cutie. Oh my gosh,
Why it's great.
he is. His design's great. He's a sweetheart. He's a fucking nerd, and it's great. He's best boy. And I've also got these two listed for you, Skull. The other mentions is Deadpool and Umbrella Academy.
Oh yeah. So for listeners tuning in, I am absolutely obsessed with Deadpool as a character. And the icing on the cake for all of this is Deadpool is canonically pansexual. And it's shown several times in the comic as well. Um, there's moments in some of the comics even where like it's shown very clearly. There was one comic, I can't remember if it was the Deadpool and Spider-Man comic or if it was just um in a different comic, but we get to see what is essentially, okay, here are 5 people, my top 5 people who I would go on a date with if possible. And I'm pretty sure that is like Thor, Hillary Clinton, Zambia, Arthur, Spider-Man, and Hellcat were the 5 characters mentioned on the list.
What the hell?
Honestly, knowing Deadpool, it sounds about right.
Oh, and confirmed in the Spider-Man and Deadpool comic that the Spider-Man and Deadpool from that specific universe are soulmates.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Holy shit!
Okay, that's interesting.
That's
yeah.
really cool. I never knew that.
They did this ritual to try summon Deadpool's wife, and Spider-Man showed up instead.
That's great! Oh
Oh my god,
my
that's
gosh!
hilarious.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful! Oh, that's
So there's
great.
that. And then with the Umbrella Academy, there is Klaus, who is, at least in the show, shown as a gay man. And with season 3 of the Umbrella Academy coming out, there is Vanya, now Victor, a trans man.
That's awesome. Now, we ready to head into our next segment, guys?
Yes.
Alright, so I'm going to touch briefly on this. Well, we all are, for this matter, before we get into the final segment. So, I want to get this out of the way, but the negative representation and just negative things towards the community in terms of representation. So a big thing, especially within media, we still kind of see this, but we see it with like queer baiting, along with like genuine bad representation.
Oh.
Yes,
In their
and
caricature.
pretty much, but like we understand where that came from, right,
Yeah.
Raptor?
Uh,
Is that a
You,
no?
you've got the stupid YouTube videos, drinking the gay potion at 3 a.m.
Something like that. But like even from the bigger studios where we see like what was it,
Yeah.
the Hays Code still had an effect on them even after it was taken out. I believe it was the Hays Code. I could be mistaken, but essentially where in media, especially in I'd say more in America. Can't really speak for other countries, but I know in America how like in the early 1900s, it was basically we'd see like gay characters, but then it was changed where you couldn't show anyone who was like queer because it was seen as a sin. And
yeah.
that's why like you would see like villains as the queer people.
Well, even
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people now see LGBT people as sinners.
Well, there's still going to be those people, those like the more bigoted people, essentially, the very religious people. Um,
Yeah.
but you see, even after like that code was taken out, there were still people who would do that kind of queer baiting. I look more to Disney for this, especially when it came to the villains. Very iconic ones such as Scar, Ursula, Jafar. I swear there was like a fourth one in there, but like they're very, how do I say this? Like Jafar and Scar, they're very effeminate. Jafar has very fabulous mascara for starters, but just the way that they also convey themselves. Like look to the beginning of The Lion King with how Scar and how he presents himself and how he acts. It's a lot more effeminate, and kind of makes him look more like queer. Same way with Jafar. Jafar doesn't really come off as like super masculine. He comes off a little more as effeminate. And then you have Ursula, who is literally, inspired and designed by a drag queen.
Yeah. And admittedly, the first like queer villain I think of is the Little Mermaid villain because she strikes me as queer. I don't know why, but she just strikes me as queer.
Well, again, like, yeah, like she was inspired by a drag queen, and well, we all know drag queens. But like, I think that was really awesome that she was inspired by a drag queen because one, it's still
Yeah.
representation, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, even though these people are seen as villains, it's almost a little cathartic. Because even as much as we try to, like, bring our cause to center stage and try to be acknowledged for what we actually are as, like, people, we're still seen as outcasts. But these outcasts, such as like Jafar and Scar and Ursula, Gaston, Hook, all of these early like Disney villains are so unabashedly themselves. So even though it's queer baiting, and they're never going to actually explicitly say if these characters are queer or not, you still get that feeling and like just this draw towards them. At least I do. I can't speak for you guys, but I know personally I liked the villains a lot more than the heroes because there was so much personality to them. The way they act, the way they moved, and just the way that they indulged in who they were was just amazing. Like, look at Gaston for starters. I mean, he doesn't come off as explicitly queer because he's like, you know, a himbo essentially. Kind of. He's a little he's got that manipulative side. He is smart enough to know how to get what he wants. But at the same time, he kind of comes off as like an ignorant himbo at times. But
He
like
should strike this like that jockstrap guy.
exactly, he's that jock that everyone loves essentially. And I definitely enjoy Gaston the most out of all the Disney villains because of just how much he enjoys himself. Sure, he's like a little narcissistic on the side, but like he knows what he wants. He's going to go for it and he doesn't give a damn what it takes. He's going to get it. That's why like I kid you not, my favorite line in The Beauty and the Beast, like the original one from Disney, literally comes from Gaston whenever he's questioning the Beast when he says, "Were you in love with her? Did you honestly think she'd want you when she had someone like me?" Like that has always been my favorite line from Gaston. It's just it hits with so much power just knowing how this man is, and it's fucking great. And then like Ursula, she barely happily indulges in like just being who she is, tricking people and taking what she wants or using them essentially, like she does with Ariel, because Ariel's a stupid teenager.
Yeah.
She's letting her hormones and her desires run wild after her father basically, trashed her treasure grotto and was just like, hey, you can't be in love with these kind of people. They're awful. Knowing probably at that point that they were what caused her mother's death. So it's like, especially after seeing Ariel's beginning, when you learn what happened to Athena, essentially. And then Scar, of course, you just kind of feel bad for him because they literally named him like, well, I didn't think they named him Scar. I think his original name, that's I think canonical, was literally something that translated to like garbage or trash or something along those lines. Something that just didn't bode well for naming a kid with. Whereas Mufasa literally means king, so it's like you have a favorite child already.
Yeah.
And then like just early Disney was definitely queer baiting, which again is never good to do, especially when you have a lot more people who are a little more blatant in it. I know it's like you guys were kind of mentioning how like Skull. I know you were kind of like just probably throwing out some like fake titles, but like YouTubers definitely would do this. There have been some that do this, at least to my knowledge. I don't know who they are.
Ben Shapiro.
Yes, yes, there's this.
And Matt Welsh. And Michael Knowles.
Oh dear. But yeah, no, like
Oh, what? Did I unleash a list?
you did unleash a list. But no, yeah, like you still get that kind of stuff, and that's never good to do because one, it's kind of like falsely advertising for starters because you're not actually this. You're trying to pretend to be something you're not, trying to like get people to like click on your video and stuff like that, which don't do that. That's not good. There's a lot of
Yeah.
young LGBT like teens and kids, and I do say kids because there are some kids who do know at that age that they like boys or they like girls or they don't like either or they won't like ever either. So or they might be, you know, not actually a girl and not actually a guy. Kids are smart enough to realize this. We're
Props
not.
to those kids, by the way.
Yes. I mean, just take to like any kind of social media and ask like other like queer people of their experiences. Some of them will tell you they've known since they were a kid. So no, like again, so when it comes to like things like the Florida bill, it's kind of like a there's a word for it. Pointless, I guess. There's a better way to put it, but
Meaningless.
yeah, Because like kids are gonna be exposed to this regardless. They're gonna see like obviously like people who are like trying to like bait them, like queer baiting them into like seeing their stuff like, hey, we are this even though we're not. Or you get things like, you ready for this, Ruthless? Rainbow capitalism.
Oh no.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
here we
Yep.
go.
Yes, the good old switch over to LGBT during June, and then once July comes out, you kick them out the door.
Yep.
That's why you gotta be
Sounds
careful.
about right with every corporation.
Well, most corporations, I feel like, tend to like be more in the bad about this. I can't speak for all corporations because obviously there's going to be some that do genuinely support LGBT on some level. Um but there are definitely some that really just try to make a penny off of us. Well, every dollar, dime, whatever they can get.
Like Disney.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Definitely
And
Disney. That's one of them. Um,
I got to say up front, corporations in its own nature, they all like in its own nature, all about profit to the bottom top. And if we're gonna talk about the system, it's all about the management getting as much money as possible, and just caring about their bottom line. Anything that can get to there, they'll do. But anything that block them or might hinder it, they might try to bend to the right direction. Doesn't mean that it's always gonna be leaning into that direction of doing the right thing. There's not enough incentives if it's just increase their profits.
yeah, basically. Um, there
Like Disney, for
is
instance,
Disney, yeah, but like
they get a
their
lot of
support,
subsidies.
especially when it comes like their support of the Florida Don't Say Gay bill that they only just paused their funding on.
Oh yeah.
But then they're so ready to switch to rainbow products, rainbow this and rainbow that.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, they do support these politicians. Just they support them just to keep their subsidies. But yet, someone who supports their open mindedness, it will be 100% against them, and that's like the part of corporations in general that's kind of screwed up. That they claim to be so pro rainbow, but yet they are supporting politicians that aren't, and they're more supporting their economic positions. That's why, no matter what, there's like corporations in its own nature is not democratic.
Well, again, I think it also just like depends on the corporation too and who actually does like run them. Because again, there are certain ones that do actually kind of care, but yes, again, they are still making money off of us, but they're trying to do it in a way that does um bring awareness. Because I am going to bring this up, not just because I work there, but I do generally want to bring this up because I do appreciate what they did. But this year, Adidas, for their Pride collection, they're actually collaborating with a designer who is LGBT, and the like sportswear and everything in the collection is inspired by the Stonewall Uprising of 1969.
Oh.
Personally, like I don't care too much for the collection just because it's like it's not my taste of clothes. I'm a very simple person when it comes to clothes, and like a lot of this is like really crazy design and color, which is cool, but not for me. I don't care for it personally, but it's really cool. I've kind of described it as something you'd see in like the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. That's what a few other people have described it as too, like, especially if you see like the track jackets and the track pants. But oh yeah, this year they are collaborating with a LGBT designer who is designing the stuff after the Stonewall uprising. You know what the first big riot essentially for LGBT rights, for equal rights, under the whole the slogan "Love Unites," which I kind of like a little bit better than "Love is Love" because love does unite. It's hate that pulls us apart, but love is what brings us together.
Yeah.
So I at least want to say that like you do have companies like Disney, even things like AT&T and other stuff who will switch over to Pride during June to make a profit off of people. But then you do have people like Adidas or companies like Adidas that do try. And as far as I know or have heard, there are certain brands like Adidas and Nike and Levi who haven't donated to was anti-LGBT politicians and charities and stuff like that, where they do try to be supportive of the community, and they like donating certain proceeds to those communities from the sales. Which I think is even more astounding more for Nike because a lot of the companies that I see that are very scummy like Disney and Walmart and stuff like that are more, I believe, American based. So it does surprise me a little bit more with Nike because Nike, I believe, is American based. I think it's the only American based sportswear store or brand, I should say, because I think everything else is like European. I think. Don't quote me on that. I think that's what I learned, but I could be wrong. But I think Nike is one of the only American brands.
It is American.
Okay, that's what I thought. I think it's one of the only ones though, because I think all the others are like European, essentially. I think. I know Adidas is. I know Adidas is like German based. So like it kind of makes sense that Adidas wouldn't really donate to our politicians, at least to me. But like it's still you still get the picture though. But then like you have companies like dare we say it, Hobby Lobby, who are fully anti-LGBT.
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, Chick-fil-A as well.
Apparently Chick-fil-A is getting in some hot water right now. They made a thing on June 1st that was kind of sounding like they were trying to say they supported LGBT without actually saying it or acknowledging some of their scummy stuff from the past.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and we definitely know their recent past.
Also, their chicken is overhyped, to be honest. Like, it is the most overhyped chicken I've had. Yeah, it's good, but it's not crispy as, like, Popeyes or good as, like, even Burger King's chicken sandwich is actually a lot better. I know that a lot of people are gonna go try to put me out like a fucking pike, but y'all are just too hype about that sandwich. Like, jeez.
I can't say anything. I've never been to a Chick-fil-A.
Neither have I.
I mean, I've been a couple times. I honestly prefer KFC, personally.
I'm not a big fan of KFC, but I think we're getting off topic.
Yeah, we are.
That's gonna happen. That's fine.
I mean, it is a podcast. Like,
We're just here to talk. Remember that, guys. But
yeah.
I mean, yeah, we're still talking, and we're having a good time doing so.
that's all that matters. But yeah, if you guys want to get back on topic, I can do that easily for you. So if we want to end the negativity, we can head back into some positivity. Where again, LGBT representation wasn't always this big thing it is now. This is only more of a recent thing where we're actually seeing LGBT couples and characters in like the big screen in like small time shows, big name novels, or even just small time indie authors or even video games and things like that. There were times where in the past that if we wanted that kind of representation, we had to look, between the lines. And even now, there's still some characters we have to look between the lines on. Because again, there are these corporations who won't say directly if these characters are part of the community or not. But then
Also, one thing.
go ahead.
Yeah. One good representation. That's always that they do Granted, I'm probably one of the only people who watched it, mainly because I seen it when I was small, and I just watched it like religiously. Young Justice. It has like Aqualad. He he's I believe he's gay.
Was
Or
he?
yeah, Aqualad. Well, he's now Aquaman, but
Wait, Young Justice, right? Where it had like the sidekicks who would make
yeah.
up their own little like Justice League, essentially.
I mean, they pretty much made a Justice League. I'm just gonna say it like up front. Like
Well, they
they
did, but
pretty
like
much
there was
have.
the actual Justice League, and then there was
Yeah,
them, wasn't there?
yeah.
Then I know exactly what you're talking about. I watched it too. I never thought of him as gay, to be honest. Like he just existed in a bubble. Like,
Are we talking about the darker skin guy?
yeah,
You did not pick it up then.
I didn't.
I
No,
totally
I
felt it.
didn't.
I sensed it like it was very like the writers made it very subtle, very
Hold
subtle.
up. I wanna look this up too, because I'm missing out now.
Because to be fair, it's shown in like season 4,
Young.
and you would have to read between the lines of two characters.
One of the first thing that pops up too is Aqualad gay when I type in Young Justice.
Yeah.
um.
Granted, I am getting like vivid mainly because I remember him like in
No, he
season
is
4.
gay. It is
Yeah,
confirmed in the comics that he is gay.
yeah. Even shown in this show.
I don't remember in the show, but it's saying right here, looking it up. Oh wait, is this from the show? It looks like the style from the show. Hold up.
Show.
Was it Calder?
Yeah, Calder. Yeah, Calder.
Who's Calder? Okay, so you're the comic guy. Who's Calder?
He's the aqua. Like he's more of like, to be fair, I kind of see he's more of like the Aqua Lad that Injustice Aqua Lad that I always think every time I think of Aqua Lad, I always think of Calder. He is the best Aqua Lad. I love him.
Okay, so wait, hold up. I'm kind of having. Okay, you might hate me for this, but in what was it? I think isn't he part of like? Isn't he seen in like the Teen Titans? Calder?
No,
Okay, no, okay.
No.
I was thinking, okay, well, look, he looks like someone seen in like the Teen Titans Go cartoon, all right? And I've seen some episodes
Calder.
of that. Yeah.
Calder is dark skinned guy. It
Oh,
totally
that's
looks
him.
different.
I thought he
Yes,
was
that's Calder.
Aqualad.
That is, he's Aqualad technically originally,
You're
but then he
confusing me.
It is very confusing if you're
I'm
not
very
catching up.
confused. I'm extremely confused right now.
And
So,
you
so
know
he,
the
I'm
best
just as
thing?
lost as you, Lotus.
okay,
You
good.
want to
I'm
know
not
the
the only one.
you want to know the best thing? There's
What?
3 Aqualads.
I'm done. I'm
Aquaman.
done. Nope. I'm fucking done. It's like, how many Batgirls are there? 10? Okay. Oh my gosh, no, that was meant to be a joke.
Wait, is there actually?
Technically, if you're going off the technical, 2. If you're gonna try to count that one, but technically there's multiple versions of different worlds. But if you're going by the main continuity, technically you can say 2.
That's only by the main continuity, and you know some people stretch it, so
I
who
mean,
knows?
if you're gonna say that, I can easily say, okay, like, why even count the main continuity? Because the multiverse is so diverse, I even ignore it. I only kind of focus on the main continuity. Granted, the Injustice universe is very. I like that universe, but I don't count it as main continuity because I don't want to see fucking Superman fucking trying to take over the world.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, that was one thing I found like words.
They try to do in the fucking movie to make him like an invincible god. I'm like a cold blooded god. I'm like, That's not
Yeah,
Superman, my dude.
that's not Superman at all.
Exactly. It's just like.
I'm so lost.
I am too. So let's go. Before you confuse me and Skull any further with the comic books and the multiple versions of one character, let's go into this next point where sometimes we do have to read in between the lines now and even back then when it came to characters in media, whether it be like obviously like video games, shows, movies, all that kind of fun stuff. The one I'm gonna share this personal example because I don't know how many people will share it. I know you guys may not because I don't think you guys have seen these movies, but I'm just gonna say. But Barbie and the Diamond Castle, Barbie and her friend in that were extremely gay. It was hard to like hide that one. It was great because like
Uh,
it was very cottagecore. You had Barbie and her friend living in like this cottage together as like friends, but like it came off as so fucking gay. And even though they had like male love interests, they didn't actually end up with them by the end of the movie. They were still together. So like, and it was like their friendship and their love for each other that got them through the entire movie. And like, how can you tell me it's not gay?
That sounds very gay,
yeah,
and I love
that
it.
does
It does, and like
sound
so
gay.
many people now who look back at it, they're like, "This is the gayest Barbie movie ever," and it's great. Cause like when you look at Barbie, she's pretty much like that icon for heteronormativity. Cause like she's that white rich girl with blonde hair, blue eyes. You know what you expect as the shining example of a straight white woman. But no, yeah, if you look at like the Barbie and the Diamond Castle, it is extremely gay, and it's not. It can be a little subtle to kids. It's subtle to kids, obviously, because like it's Barbie and her best friend. Little girls are gonna see
Yeah.
it as like just two best friends being best friends. But then you have adults look at it and they're like, "That's really gay," and it's great. But another old one, and Scully, you'll be the one to really join me on this one. Danny Phantom.
Yes. Oh my god.
Would you
So,
like to share it then?
Danny Phantom. Yeah, what was her name? Amber, whatever? Female clone of, Danny?
Is it the goth
Was
one?
supposed to be like, no, not her. Fuck, I forget her name. But, anyways, in Danny Phantom, the main character, Danny, right? He gets cloned. And, his quote-unquote perfect clone was a female character. So, trans, question mark?
Well, I
Not only
know.
that, like, there's several scenes where it's like, oh, girl's bathroom, to go ghost, and also the swimming pool scene where Danny's the only guy wearing a t-shirt.
Isn't there like also some scenes where it's shown where like his chest is kind of like bulging out a little bit, almost like he's wearing a chest binder, if I'm not mistaken. And I know like obviously it's Butch Hartman, it's probably done all for laughs, but like when you look at it from a queer lens, it really looks like that Danny is trans. That was probably obviously wasn't the intention, clearly, but like
Huh.
it's what you see a lot, and when you see it a lot, you just tend to like that's what you see. I mean, that's what a lot of Tumblr kids have pointed out too. So, but then like the same thing with the Danny Phantom that goes for Ed, Ed and Eddie too,
Yeah.
which was like what was it, Double D, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
Double D.
Yeah.
Bro, even I, as a kid, I thought he was like that was a sheep, but revealed that yeah, he's a dude. I'm like, huh? Confused as hell.
Well, I mean, I've seen a lot of other like some other YouTubers who like cover Ed, Ed and Eddie a little bit, who also admitted that they thought Double D was a girl too when they were younger. Which I mean,
Honestly,
it's fair.
yeah. Honestly, as a kid, I thought he was the cutest out of all the three boys.
Aww.
I don't know why, but he just out of the three, I was like, I don't know how to feel.
That one's cute.
To be fair, I always liked Double D the most because he just seemed the most sensible, and to me, just seemed like the biggest sweetheart out of all of them. Whereas, you know, what was it? Wasn't Eddie the stupid one?
The himbo?
That to, I guess, if you want to call him that. I wouldn't, but
I
Technically,
by
I
your
wouldn't.
definition, maybe. But I personally would not consider him a himbo.
and then you have the scheming, overly whatever, always
Narcissistic, maybe.
uh,
Full of himself, ego-driven.
I love him. I love him a lot. I
Oh
love
my
him a
gosh.
lot.
yes.
But he's not Double D, okay? He's not Double D. Best boy.
Double D was best boy. I love Double D. I mean, personally, I never saw Double D as a woman when I watched the show. I always saw like him as a guy. But looking back, I can kind of see where people would make those conclusions because one, like he's always hiding his hair or like head, which makes you think that he's hiding something more. Um, and then like his voice seems a little bit more, it's not, I wouldn't say quite as deep as the others, but it does sound more a little like, it felt a little more effeminate, like more you know what I mean? With the
Yeah.
way like his voice was, it wasn't like the other two's. Obviously that made him stand out a little bit more, but you know, still. Go away, Facebook. But also when it comes to other kind of representation that we have to look between the lines, this is a recent one that I'm pretty sure we can all kind of get behind a little bit, and that's Luca, the Pixar movie. Have you guys seen it?
No,
You
I
haven't
have
seen
not.
Luca? Ruthless? What
I
about
remember watching a bit of it and then I fell asleep.
you? Oh my gosh. That's
I I I was so exhausted when I watched it. I was like wanting to watch it and then I just
oh,
fucking
I thought it was bored in the
knocked out.
sense it was so boring it put you to sleep.
No. I was just so exhausted watching it. I was like, I finally done all my reviews and all my work. Finally just had my kitty next to me.
And
And
then
I
you just
was
passed right
about
out.
to watch it and then I just and then I passed out on my bed. And then the next morning I was like,
Ah,
my
shit.
parents my parents was like, bruh, you had the fucking TV blaring.
It's like, well, sorry about that. What about you, Skull? Have you seen Luca?
Luca, no.
Oh my gosh. All right. So I don't know how many of you have heard like the kind of like controversy, I guess well is what people are calling it, where a lot of people had thought that Luca was Pixar's first like queer film, where Luca himself was a queer character. But then Pixar obviously was quick to say no, it's not that. It's a coming of age story about two best friends. Which I mean, I've seen a majority of Luca. There have been some scenes I have missed, I'm going to admit. But for the most part, you can't tell me it's not gay when you have Luca who wants to explore the human world, comes across another of his kind of like fish monster or fish person. I don't know what they're called again. Who is on land and he gets to experience the human world with this other guy, and like you see quite the friendship develop between them, and the jealousy that Alberto has whenever Luca starts getting too close to was it Julia? I think that's what her name was. I could be wrong. But like that doesn't feel quite just friendship level jealousy. That feels like a little bit more. Especially with the goodbye at the end when he sells the Vespa to help Luca go to school with their mutual female friend. Like it was so sweet. Like it really felt like a more coming out and coming of age story between the two boys. But like, you know, you can't tell me it's not gay. It's very gay.
Mhm.
Kind of reminds me of Pixar's other movie, Turning Red. There's a couple of characters there that kind of
Yeah.
scream they are bisexual.
Yes. My, uh, yes. Just, yes. No words other than yes. I
Cause
can't words right now.
you're good. Cause you have Priya, who is just everyone's spirit animal at this point. Let's be honest. How at the party, was it Tyler's party, I believe?
Yeah.
She's dancing with like the goth girl, and you see like some other points where like her and the goth girl are like getting along and things like that, which is really sweet. And then her, like, obviously her friends are just like, hey, look at them, like just the eyebrow wiggles and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I think it was kind of clear that maybe Priya was bi, at least to me. Another one that's a little more subtle that people are kind of reading romance into, which I don't blame him because I saw it too when I was watching the movie, and that was Miriam and May. Like, I know the two are boy crazy still, but there was some genuine chemistry between the two girls. Like, there's some scenes that are kind of hard to overlook, and again, like, maybe this is my own experience with good friends or like just things like that, but there are some things you kind of notice that Miriam does over the other two girls, like whenever May is stuck as her panda, she's like trying to reel in her emotions and her friends like come knocking at her window. You see the like Priya and Abby are just kind of like there trying to get May's attention. But then you see Miriam, who's actually looking in, trying to like peek inside and like see what's going on with her. Whereas like Priya's just like, hey, you need more pads? And Abby's like, fuck all that. The Four Town's coming to Toronto. And what was it? Someone had pointed out that every time that
Tyler gives me gay vibes.
who does?
Tyler gives me gay vibes.
Yes! Oh my gosh! So that's what got me the most too, especially at the end with the Four Town concert. Whenever he's
Yes.
like, I love you, man!
Yes.
Like, I don't even give a shit that he's into boy bands, because, like, anyone can be into boy bands. You don't have to be gay to be into boy bands.
No, you
Exactly.
really don't.
Yeah, you really don't. But when
Boy
he
bands are an experience.
Exactly. And then, but whenever he just like clutched his heart and he reached out to the guy, and he's like, "I love you," and he tears up. I'm like, "There's no way in hell this kid is straight. There is no way in hell."
Happy squeaks.
I know. I mean, it would also make sense to why he's such an outcast too, because that movie was in the early 2000s, and that was still a big taboo at the time to be
Oh
gay.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, like, no, yeah, especially since looking at the no, I can't really speak to all this because again, American, and this is the early 2000s movie in Canada essentially. But I've heard some other like Canadians kind of react to the movie and say how like Tyler lives in like quite a fancy house, or at least like a well-to-do house, like big front yard, big backyard, pool, like two-story and everything. It was like a really nice house. Like, you know, his parents are like obviously have some money to them. Especially if he's able to just drop like $200 for May to come to his party. Like, he's gotta have some money. So, like, there's gotta be that pressure there, too, for him to be, like, a certain way.
Yeah.
Which, oh my gosh. Yeah, no, Tyler definitely gives me gay vibes. There's no way that boy is straight.
No.
Especially with just the way that he projects. Like, he's just, he's so insecure, too. And it's like he wants people to like him, then he gets added to the girl group, and I'm just like, I don't know, sounds gay.
Sounds about right.
Mhm.
Haven't seen it, but hearing that whole description, I definitely see it.
Well, I find okay. One thing that kind of does bother me a little bit when people talk about like Tyler with turning red is that the first thing they're going to say when they see him making fun of Mei is that he's in love with her, and I'm just like, just
No.
because he's making fun of her doesn't mean he's in love with her.
Yeah,
Can we please stop can we please stop encouraging this stereotype?
Yeah.
It's incredibly harmful
Yeah, like
to
abuse
not
does
only,
not equal love.
yeah. Like
it's just
let's stop encouraging that and also the boys will be boys thing. Like just please.
I
Please.
mean, it's not entirely wrong, but in certain circumstances, yeah, no, it's not right. I know more
I tease
often
all
than
my friends.
not, it feels like boys will just be boys, but that's not always the case. There are obviously exceptions, and it's not the rule that boys will be boys, because, like, you know, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But No, yeah, like just because someone makes fun of you, mocks you, teases you, bullies you, does not mean that they're in love with you. And I understand that kids don't always know how to express their emotions and how they feel towards other people, especially when
Mm.
you're in fucking middle school and you've got your hormones
Yeah.
fucking going wild. It's
Oh
from what
yeah.
we saw from Turning Red, she was reaching that point in her life where she was she was starting puberty and stuff like that. So she was starting to experience like hormones going wild. She was starting to experience the fact that she was feeling attraction towards other people. And granted, it was towards boys because, well, let's be fair, like it's still an early 2000s kind of like take setting. You still gotta adhere to the heteronormative normativity and things like that. So you still gotta show, you know, the basics, I guess, the more
Yeah.
normal, but there's still subtext there. There's still, I feel like Miriam might be bi. May, it's still a little hard to tell. Tyler definitely feels like he's gay. He'd be a gay boy.
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, it just feels like that. Like, yeah, he tries to act tough and everything. Yeah, he makes fun of May, but I don't think it's because he likes her. I think he's just trying to fit in. He's just trying to be a boy, essentially. And this
God, when you
is.
say it like that, I also get trans vibes now. How dare you?
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Who
I can see that
knows?
also.
I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, I don't think he would be trans. I think he's just trying to be like what society thinks he should be and not the him he wants to be. Essentially is what it is. Cuz you see that once he's actually with the girls at the end of the movie, like part of their little friend group, he feels it seems like he's a lot more at home amongst them.
Yeah. I used to think that, like, for a little bit, I thought, I felt when I was really young, I felt like I didn't feel like a man. But what was the problem is just I didn't understand myself completely, and not understanding that, yeah, I have some feminine qualities, and I might not, I have qualities of femininity, doesn't mean that I'm a man. Like, doesn't mean that I'm not a man. Like, you can have feminine qualities, but also have masculine qualities.
Exactly.
And I used to have like a really black and white thinking, maybe because how many people around me that were like, "Oh, you're not. Oh, you're a little bitch," or "Oh, you're just too man up. Don't be so emotional if you're a man."
Um,
That type of crap.
is it alright if I ask to change the subject here? I'm starting to get a little bit uncomfortable.
That's fair.
That's fine.
It's just
Yeah.
I'm just saying personal stories.
No, you're good. I can easily do that. So I'm gonna bring this up because this is fun. So ruthless. You'll
Mm-hmm.
hear me talk about this, but Miraculous Ladybug actually does have some confirmed LGBT characters. Rose is bisexual. Julika, I believe they said was lesbian. Um,
Julika?
Julika, yes. Alex is
Is it
a romantic, which I'm going to say that absolutely does show in the show. Because anytime they talk about romance around her and trying to get Marinette with Adrian, she is the most logical amongst them. And you can tell. She doesn't understand it. And I'm just like, I'm all for it. But then, Max, the little nerdy boy, the one that's always around, oh, what's his name? The jock. Kim, that's it. The one who's always around Kim. Uh, he's actually asexual. But the one thing I think a lot of people see, I don't know if it's confirmed or not. So I could be wrong in this, but the one thing I definitely see that is LGBT more than anything is Rose and Julika being an item. Same with I haven't seen the episodes that introduce this character, but there is Nathan, who is the illustrator. I know he was introduced in season 1 with the Evil Illustrator, but there is another character. I don't know his name because I didn't see the season 3 episode. I think it was a season 3 episode. Um, where they introduce his character, where he is a writer, and there's quite a few people that do ship him with Nathaniel. And like I can see it. They make a good team. It really feels like it too. There's like some gay there. But definitely with Rose and Julika, there's definitely something there. I don't know if they actually are in a relationship. They definitely do have a friendship going on there. But like it's that kind of in between where like is it a relationship or is it just a friendship? Like it's that kind of in between. It's a little hard to tell if you know what I mean. But what do you
Okay,
think, Ruthless?
I'm gonna say this, and this might be me, just from the a bit of exposure I just have. I wouldn't be surprised if it would have been like out of nowhere, like they show like in the ending, they show, oh yeah, it's some random off-screen civilian type of bullshit. Like I wouldn't be surprised with that type of like. I also am. To be fair, I am not like the biggest fan of the series, mainly because I'm like the overall, mainly because I've seen like season one and a little bit of like random seasons, but I'm just trying to go through the slug. It is a little bit hard.
Good luck getting through seasons 2 and 3. But I'll be honest, season 4 is not too bad. But
Really?
no, I am generally honest. Um, and I'll be
Really?
honest, like one thing with Miraculous, I think a little bit of a missed opportunity, maybe, at least in my opinion, was maybe going some like a different route when they introduced the like other love interests. They had the opportunity to have Marinette and even Adrian like move on completely from each other, essentially. Obviously, like it's the square, so like Ladybug, not Ladybug, but Marinette moving on from Adrian and Cat Noir moving on from Ladybug. Essentially, they're moving on from each other without knowing it, but I feel like instead of Marinette being with Luca and Adrian being with Kagami, I think they felt like they should have flipped the script a little bit because even though like obviously they are opposites to each other, but at the same time the same sex ones complement each other a lot better
Yeah.
when you look at it, because Kagami really compliments Marinette, because Marinette is very unsure about herself and hesitates and second guesses herself, whereas Kagami is very sure of herself. She never hesitates. She knows what she wants and she knows how to get it. And I think that would be excellent for Marinette. It's better than Adrian, who is very similar to Marinette in that regard, where he's not very sure about himself, and he does question himself, but he does know he likes Ladybug, and he does try to go for it. But I feel like Kagami's a lot better in that regard and would be better for Marinette. Same way with that Luca would be better for Adrian. Where you have Luca who's just very calm and chill. Again, he knows who he is and he knows what he wants. But he's very calm and understanding and things like that. Thing that Kagami quite isn't. Not saying that she's very like she's heartless, but she's not quite as open and understanding as Luca is. And I feel like that's something that Adrian needs more than Kagami. So like
Mhm.
yeah, they kind of created like the perfect characters, but for the wrong pairing.
Yeah.
It just makes me a little sad, especially since they're going to be like going in hard on Adrianette and Lady Noir essentially going into the 5th season. I think more Lady Noir than anything, but like, yeah, missed
Uh,
opportunities. But aside from
I'm gonna quietly cry and gay in the corner now.
after all that explanation right there.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like it was an opportunity there. Like they could have had Adrian with Luca, because like it's such a better. Like I understand opposites do attract, but it's often better to complement each other. Like I get it. Like Kagami is the opposite of Adrian, and Luca is the opposite of Marinette. But you have Kagami who complements Marinette, and Luca who complements Adrian, because you have Marinette and Adrian who are too similar. But then like, you know. They kind of messed up a little bit. I'm just gonna say that, just a little bit. But any
I,
area where like I feel like it wasn't kind of messed up, or like I don't know if it's canonical or not. It's the same issue with Rose and Julika, and that's in Final Fantasy 13, where Vanille and Fang. So these two, there's a very close friendship. I'm gonna say that right now. It is very obvious that they have a very close friendship. It could almost be a sisterhood or even a like a relationship. But you see that the two are willing to go to whatever lengths to help each other and even protect each other, like putting their the other's needs before their own, essentially. But also putting their needs before, it's complicated. But you see, like, even at the end of 13, when they become Ragnarok, they do it together. And when they're frozen in crystal together, you see them kind of like curled into balls where like their faces are parallel to each other, but they're kind of wrapped around each other with their hands holding each other's. So like even in crystal they're together. And even once they're separated and Lightning Returns, like the third one of the trilogy, you see that Fang has left Vanille not because of like any sentiment, but because Fang is trying to protect Vanille. I mean, when you find the relic that Fang is looking for, you get word that the Order has caught up to you guys. And as you're about to turn to Fang to tell her, like, hey, we need to get out of here, Fang is ready to destroy the relic, saying, I'm sorry, Vanille. It's like, I don't know. It feels like there's more there, but at the same time, it could be a very strong sisterhood. It's very hard to tell, and it's like, it's kind of got the fans divided too, and I'm just like, I don't know. It seems like it's a relationship, but then you also have Hope, who seems like he has feelings for Vanille, but Vanille, it's hard to tell who she has feelings for, if she does for anyone at all. Like, yeah. But there's definitely something with her and Fang. I'm not sure if it's like romantic, but there's definitely something platonic. But I don't know if it's romantic at all. But like, it feels like it might be. But I think to help Skull out a little bit, I can give you and Raptor something to talk about.
Oh.
What? How the fuck do you say this? Danganronpa?
Oh,
Danganronpa?
Go
Danganronpa.
crazy. Have fun, you
Yes.
two.
So, a lot of people, at least in the little corner of the Danganronpa fandom that I'm in, or have been in, say that Kazuichi, a mechanic character, essentially,
Yeah.
is trans, based on sort of, his figure, outfit, and just a little bit about his personality.
Honestly, I never really heard about that, but now that I think of it, I think that makes sense. Then again, that could just be me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure in one of his friendship events it was mentioned that he had long hair at one point as well, which is just another thing that people were like, too.
Yeah.
But the man has a very feminine figure.
Yeah, he kind of does. Something that I mainly look at like the Danganronpa ships, so uh like Tenko and Himiko. Also, I personally kind of see something between Asahina and Sakura. Um, I don't really see much between. I don't really see much like gayness between Mondo and Taka though.
Okay, I mean, that's all like shipping though. Um, if you look at it, with the main characters of the games being Makoto, Hajime, and Shuichi,
Yuki?
they do technically have both male and female love interests. I say technically because it's like some people are like, nah, but a lot of people will lean into it full tilt and be like, yeah, that's gay.
So it's more
Like,
like leaving it up to the player, essentially.
Yeah, a really good example is Shuichi and Kaito from the third game in the Danganronpa series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just
now that we're talking about it, I really like Shuichi's haircut.
yeah,
I know nothing about any of this.
Shuichi is kind of like the goth character in the third game.
yeah, like the exact opposite. He's just a sad detective who is kind of insecure and awkward.
I don't know, the black hair, black clothes, and he always
It doesn't
kind
mean
of
someone's goth per
He's
se.
he's like stereotypical detective. I say in quotes, but he's also a sad boy. Here, I'll send a picture of him. Send a picture of him to the chat.
Anyway, keep going.
So there's that.
Is that all?
Technically, what? No, technically with the gay, there's Hajime and Kazuichi in the second game. I say
really.
technically. I say technically because some of their interactions can be seen as quite gay. But at the same time, Kazuichi is also very much like, leave Sonia alone or I'm gonna turn your alarm clock into a bomb. But, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Kazuichi simps over Sonya too much for me to even like.
Kazuichi has a shit taste in waifus.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I've heard a lot of people try and say the only reason why he's so, like, full tilt heavy into, like, I like this woman is to, compensate for gay. But again, that's just, like, fan speculation shit.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to say Sakura is trans. A trans woman.
Yeah. I think I could see that, honestly. But then again, me.
Well, she is a very big lady.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, yes, she is trans. Even her voice, though, too,
Yeah,
has like
I was
a hint
about to
of
mention her
masculinity
voice.
to it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
but
was
like,
about to
isn't
mention her
that
voice.
a problem too? Is like seeing any woman that is like more masculine as like a trans, like amongst like trans or like along that kind of line. Because I know the same thing is kind of being done to Louisa right now in Encanto. How some people are seeing her as trans just because she's a lot more like her powers are more masculine. She has a very like almost masculine like body type, and her voice is deeper. But like
I mean, I don't know. I find Sakura to be a valid lady, regardless of like whether she is or isn't trans, and I totally respect the people who headcanon her as trans. Like, what headcanons do, it makes you happy. And
Yeah.
if you can find enough evidence to like back it up enough to where it's like reasonable, then even better.
Yeah. I wouldn't say she's trans man because I would have to see more.
Louisa. I'd say Louisa is indeed like obviously a woman because like even though yes she does have the like typically more like masculine powers and body and like even a bit more of a deeper voice, she does still come off as effeminate in some of like the way she dresses and other things that she does. So it doesn't feel like to me that she is trans. It's kind of like along the same lines of how people are saying Isabella is a lesbian just because she didn't want to marry Mariano.
It's called There's Just No Chemistry. I Don't Like That Man. Oh my god, I completely missed a canon character that's trans. Grell.
Yes, you did. Grell from
Yes,
Black Butler. You're,
she.
yeah?
She's best girl.
I wouldn't say she's best girl, but she is entertaining.
I don't know, I quite like Grell.
I mean, I like her when she's with Sebastian. I'm not
Oh
gonna
my
lie.
god.
Like, they have the best chemistry on screen. Like, not necessarily romantic, but, like, just the way they play off each other is great. Just because
Yes.
Sebastian knows how to play the Grim Reaper.
Oh my god. Grell, I need you. I'm going to make you fly. Proceeds to yeet her through a wall.
Oh
Well,
my
she's just
god.
going nuts, like, oh my gosh, Bassie! I remember one scene, I think it was from season 2, mind you, where Bassie's just like, hey, can you reap these guys so we can see their memories? And she's just like, I don't know. It sounds like an awful lot of work. And he's just like, this evening, and then he like runs his hand through his bangs, and you just see the sweat beads kind of fly off him, and he gives her like this very bedroom eyes kind of look and makes her go nuts. Or just like the very introduction episode with her and Bassie when they have their like big fight scene and everything. Like that whole sequence was amazing. How she's going on about like how they were destined to be and how they'll be like Romeo and Juliet. It's just, I love it. Oh, it's great. And talking about how, oh, you're not invincible to me. I can still reap you. We'll be together. Don't you worry. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this girl's nuts.
Yeah.
But Grell is awesome. I wouldn't say best
Yes.
girl, but she is awesome. It's kind of like the same vein as Mordred, but I say Mordred is best boy.
Oh yeah, one of my friends. he I told him about that, and he was like, "Shit,"
About what?
about Mordred being a guy.
Oh yeah, that still bugs me how people still refer to Mordred as she or like
To be fair,
you know.
this friend of mine, he is not exposed to the Fate franchise, or he's not even in the like he's straight. So I gave him this news, he's like, "Shit," but I don't know how to feel about this.
It's
Oh
still that you
god.
have those people who like are part of the franchise, but still like draw Mordred and those kind of things, and I'm just like, it feels a little wrong seeing him in like
Yeah,
feminine kind of like ways because I'm like he's not who he is. He's a knight. He's a warrior. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
there's lines, and I get it. You can do what you want, but it just feels wrong.
it really does. When I saw that, I was like, like a little bit dying inside a little bit.
Yeah, and
I
so
had only
I'm not
seen
gonna
like a
lie.
little
When
bit of it.
Slayer posts that kind of stuff with Mordred, I'm just like, oh honey, no, because he's posted a few things, and I'm like, honey, that's a guy. That's not a girl. Mordred may look like a girl, but he's a guy. He very much acts like a guy too.
Anyone want to tell him?
You'll find out eventually.
What?
I kind of just want to ruin his whole career. Just
I
tell
think
him.
he watches Fate, Raptor.
Hmm.
Honestly, only thing I gotta say is I would give Mordred a. I would give a 7 for Mordred.
A 7? For
Yeah,
what?
decently cute. Like,
Oh, good
yeah,
lord.
I love the
Yeah.
boyish energy.
Oh my god.
I
All
mean,
this
hot.
gay reminds me of another thing I missed. And I feel bad for like doubling back on this. Because we've been there talked about this already, but another show with gay representation that was on Cartoon Network, OKKO.
I never watched that one.
Oh my god, So, two of the villains in the show, one of them is gay and the other is, I believe, bi.
Hmm.
But anyways, they end up, it's like really heavily implied that there's some gay, like, something going on throughout most of their interactions in the series. And even just like with, they refer to their henchmen as their children as well.
Oh.
Yes, well, I mean, robots. That,
Right. Okay.
creations, whatever, right? It's like our children. And like it's just like they have this very wholesome domestic whatever. And I haven't gotten to finish watching the show, but apparently they have like a fight somewhere in the show and they apologize to each other. And the last time they're shown on screen, it seems as though they're married, given the matching
Oh.
rings that they have.
Aw.
Oh.
Just super cute.
That is very cute.
Yes.
Yeah, it just thinking about that just makes me think of Garnet and the whole wedding episode and the cuteness there.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Which we didn't really touch too much on Steven Universe now that we're kind of circling back. Like we briefly we got into like the censorship about like around Garnet, mainly like Ruby and Sapphire, but we didn't get to really mention the other pairings that the show kind of brings up. Even the toxic ones. Like the good old Lapis and
Even
Jasper.
yeah, admittedly with the censorship overseas, I don't care. Mainly because that's a different country that does not affect. They can go fuck themselves. They can go fuck with themselves, and it's their own country. I don't care what the country does.
Yeah,
There's
but the
always
issue
people
with
gonna do
that,
shit.
even with them doing that, they are kind of hurting the communities that they have over
Yeah,
there. Again, it's the whole thing like with this Sims team, how they banned the wedding pack in Russia because they thought that Russia would have banned it because of their laws. They did end up hurting the community over there.
yeah.
So like even though like there's still like countries that will censor this stuff, they are hurting their communities that they have over there.
Mm.
They obviously may not care too much if they're doing this kind of stuff, but like still it's not good.
It's
Like
not good. Yeah,
it's
it's
not.
just bad. I'm just one of those people who finds that shit just. I honestly sometimes just look at them like they're disgusting, especially with what Vladimir Putin been doing with Ukraine.
Now,
No,
Right.
I
no.
personally don't find it right to say that a different country is disgusting because every country has their own different sets of beliefs and stuff and what's
I
right and
just,
what's wrong based on
to
what
be
the
fair,
general population
I'm
thinks.
saying that the leader. To be fair,
Well, the thing is, for the most part, a leader does, in a way, represent their nation. Not always, but they are usually the nation's ideals and beliefs. Not always, mind you, but ideally that's what they are. So we do have
arguably, yeah, I can
we
see that.
yes, but we do have to remember that every country is different. Everyone has a different set of beliefs and how they see things, and obviously how their country is going to react to certain things is
Yeah.
obviously that kind of thing. So like overseas, it's mixed how they do react to LGBT, but media is always that weird thing because it's something everyone is going to see. It's not things like Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss, which are clearly aimed for adults. Um, Whereas you have something like Steven Universe that is aimed towards kids. And you know how a lot of people are when it comes to children and the LGBT community,
Yeah,
especially with how their beliefs. I mean, three of us are American. We see what they fucking think about it on a daily
Yeah.
basis. But that's like kind of a sentiment that a lot of people have. Like, if it's something that's geared towards children, they are going to censor out the LGBT themes. So again,
I mean,
that's why Ruby and Sapphire got censored, especially over in Russia.
yeah, yeah. I mean, with stuff like that, though, too, I understand a lot of it. People believe that they're protecting the children or whatever. And it's like, I mean, they're going to be exposed to it at some point, but then again, I also understand the argument about, like, there's a certain point where it's like, you know, some things don't need to be talked about with kids in like super heavy detail when they're really young.
But just
Like
give
if you're
them an
gonna introduce it,
understanding,
yeah, I
essentially.
mean
Okay, so a
like
good
with
way. Like,
talking about stuff in schools, for example, like with elementary schools and stuff, you don't need to go into depth about it. You can just say, okay, some boys like boys, some girls like girls, some people don't like people at all. There are some people who like both, and you can just leave it at that. You don't have to
Yeah.
go into detail.
Yeah.
exactly.
Let them learn when they're older.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm going to use Turning Red as an example because I saw it a lot with this movie. How it brought up themes that, people weren't comfortable with their kids knowing about, or like, having them learn early, but it's like they're going to learn about these things sooner or later. And probably the sooner, because I'm not going to lie, when I was growing up and hitting middle school, high school, I knew nothing about sexuality, romance, or anything like that. Like, I knew absolutely nothing going into that. But as I grew older and started to understand things, when I actually, what was it? I was reaching 18, I was graduating high school. My sister was going into high school, and she knew all this stuff already from middle school because of her friend's access to the internet and then later her own access to the internet. So it's like they're gonna know this stuff eventually, whether you tell them or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
No.
understand that argument too.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, people are going to overreact to things like all the time.
I mean, yeah. It's just kind of like reactionary culture. That's kind of the problem.
And at the same time, I can also kind of see how like with people who have heavier set beliefs about certain things, how people can say, "Oh, like I don't necessarily agree with them, but I can see why people are like, oh, you know, talking about this at such a young age, just like you're trying to brainwash the kids." And it's just like it's overly paranoid, yes, but there are some things where it's like, you know, um, there are like people who try to push too much on the kids at once, and it's like they don't need to know all of this yet. They're going to learn
Mm.
eventually, but like a lot of it's stuff they don't need to know at the age that people are trying to be like, hey, this is this.
Well, at the same time, like if you try to explain it to a child who is yet to actually go through certain stages in their life, when they will begin to understand, there's a good chance that they won't understand what's being said to them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know when I was younger and growing up, so I'm just gonna use media in general because this is the best way to do it. Like when you watch a lot of these old movies per se, I remember looking through it at these as a kid. I'm like, oh, this is a fun time. Oh, that's funny. I don't understand it, but it was funny. But then when you go back and watch it as an adult, when you actually understand these things, you catch them a lot better. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say this right now. When I was a kid, I watched that '70s show with my mother. It was the favorite thing that we watched. And I mean, a lot of the stuff I didn't understand in the show. A lot of the humor went over my head. But when I got older and I watched it again, I got the jokes, and it was still a good time to me. Like you can still watch these kind of things and still enjoy it as a kid. Obviously, you're not gonna understand it, but you know, it's not necessarily harmful unless you make it harmful. Um,
Yeah.
and going back
And
to well,
that's another thing though too, is that adults need to kind of be aware of that, and like what's too much and what's like appropriate even.
exactly. So, okay. I'm going to use this example for it. So, Ruthless, this is also going to partake to you when I bring up this, but with certain shows and books and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
we need to remember what the audience is, what is okay, and how to demonstrate it. And also remember what exactly is trying to be told here. So, in terms of Miraculous Ladybug, it is a decent show. It has its faults, but at its core, it is a show meant for younger kids. And
Yeah.
when you look at it from the lens of a kid, this is just purely natural. Like,
Yeah.
it goes into the whole like overreacting over small things. Like the moment you make it a big deal, then it actually does become a bigger deal than what it actually was. Cause how was it? This was kind of like briefly mentioned in passing when I was talking to my mother about the small child we watch over. That if you don't make it a big deal, like say if they do, like if they hurt themselves like in a very small way, like maybe just like bump their head or like bump their knee or like something small, obviously, as long as you don't like overreact and go over the top and
Right.
panic, then the kid's not gonna worry too much. They're just gonna see it as like, oh no, I did this, let's move on, kind of thing. Is that kind of reactionary, teaching them like what is appropriate to overreact to and what's, what doesn't need that kind of reaction, essentially. And we see that a
Even though,
lot with, LGBT media because, again, a lot of people from the older generations were basically taught to see it as a sin. The Hays Code was proof of that enough, where like it was basically a sin to have like a main character that was gay that didn't die at the end or wasn't morally flawed in every single way or wasn't the villain. It does villainize gay people back then, and that's the only way it was seen. Not to mention when you have certain religions come into play where they do see homosexuality and the LGBT community as a whole as a sin. It is these cultures and values that people do grow up with. And so when they do see this kind of um, media, they are going to react in a negative light because this is bad in their eyes. And we do have to respect that as a result. It's
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I gotta do something real quick. If the podcast is still going on, I'll come back.
okay. But again, like it's just something we do have to keep in mind. Like I get it. Obviously LGBT, we want to make sure that we are getting our equal rights where we can, where we're treated like people, but we also have to keep in mind other people because there are more people that do exist outside this, I wouldn't say a bubble, but outside this world that we know. Because even for me, who's been in the community for quite a while, and is just so immersed into it, it's hard to remember that sometimes people are straight. Even in my own writings, it's hard to remember that people are usually straight and not like gay or some degree of gay. And it's still good for representation to have these kind of characters, but you still got to keep in mind like there are going to be some people who don't like it because it's gay or that it features gay characters, that it's a sin and things like that. So it's something we do have to remember when it comes to taking in criticisms of LGBT media, when we voice
Yeah.
our thoughts about potential LGBT characters. Because again, like with Danny Phantom, that's probably not how Butch meant it. Because Butch is, by textbook definition, a very Christian man. Um, if we saw anything like, if proof of anything was like from Araxis and you can cure autism through prayer, he is a very religious man who's very deep in his religion and, is that kind of person. So it's kind of clear that they didn't mean for Danny Phantom to be seen as trans. Or you have other authors and content creators who try to write gay or race into a character where it wasn't actually there. Um, Obviously, like some examples,
Take
like
J.K. Rowling, for
I was just
example.
about to say
yeah,
that. You read my mind there. Where she like saying how, what is it? Dumbledore was gay, which I didn't think that was a bad thing. I thought that was kind of cool. That Dumbledore is gay. I mean, I didn't read the books. I just watched the movies, and I mean, I can kind of see it.
I can see it. I can see it, but at the same time, like again, the problem that I have sometimes, even with and my biggest issue with J.K. Rowling, that she changes the continuity willy nilly. Like she did the whole Hermione was always black. Like she was never that in the books. I can definitely tell you that.
I was gonna say, you're complaining about changing continuity as a comic book reader.
No, like it's literally changing that on like a Twitter. If it was like on the books, I would have been like, fine, perfectly fine. If you just change it through like the books and write out a whole storyline, like the comics do make an explanation of, oh yeah, how we're gonna change it, or oh yeah, some event changed it, and I find that shit annoying. I even find that shit annoying.
I mean, that is fair, but like, I'm going. Like, I didn't really want to bring up that whole controversy because I'm just like, that is a whole nother issue in and of itself.
Can of worms.
Yeah, it's a whole other can of worms that I do not feel comfortable myself going into because that is not an area that I myself should go into, so I tend to stay away from it. Um, but even when it comes to like just representation in general, we do have to just be conscientious of what we are doing and saying. We can't just obviously do what we want willy nilly. Like obviously, J.K.
Yeah.
Rowling has her issues. Even Neil Gaiman kind of did this too a little bit, where he hinted that in Coraline, the two Miss Fink and Miss Forcible, he kind of hinted that they
Yeah.
might be more than just roommates and friends. How they could be
I thought they were sisters.
I thought they were friends personally. Like no, I think he might have at some point in a tweet hinted that they could have been like a couple. But again, like because of how things are progressing, people will tend like authors will even tend to write these kind of things in later on because given the time period of when their books were written, it was still seen as like
Hmm.
obviously a taboo thing. You couldn't really say it, especially if you're in mainstream. Oops. Because if you're in mainstream, you have to adhere to a certain set of rules because your media is going to be seen everywhere on a more recognized platform and things like that. Obviously, we look towards like Hell of a Boss, like that's still seen on a big scale, but at the same time, because it's not mainstream, it's not quite as prevalent, I guess you could say, as something like what Has Been Hotel is, which is hitting the mainstream, so it's getting a little more like eye, a little bit more screen, things like that.
Yeah.
Like it's just a matter of how you're getting your representation, who's giving it, and things like that. Because there's still bad representation. Like I know there have been some people within the queer community who have spoken out about things like J.K. Rowling's pen name, things that she's making under that pen name, how it's very bad representation, especially for people who are trans, featuring very poorly, not really poorly written trans character, but more villainizing it, essentially.
I'm
Um,
back. What I miss?
Not much. Um, but then, like, you do have some people who, even in our own community, will go a little, not saying that this isn't proper representation and things like that. But
Yeah.
the things we do
Mm.
have to remember is that not everyone's going to have the same experience. Not everyone's going to come from the same background, is
Hmm.
going to live in the same area, that we are trying to bring representation out in whatever way we can.
Another thing that I'd like to add to that is that a lot of people are a little bit overly critical of when straight authors try to be inclusive or whatever, and that we can't necessarily get mad at like straight writers for messing things up because they don't have the same experiences as we do in the thing.
Exactly.
But at the
And
same time, as a straight writer who's trying to do that inclusion, they should also be holding it to themselves to do research
well, okay, so I'm going to
and
add
trying
to
to move
that.
people.
So research can always be difficult because again, we're all having our own different experiences, and like say like my asexual up like coming out and things like that is different from another person who is asexual. Um so it really just depends. Like I'm going to use this example like looking to like Steven Universe Future, how they try to show off like what PTSD and that kind of stuff coming out in Steven's life. And on the surface, without actually looking at it, you can see where it may not be an accurate representation of people with PTSD. But then you have to remember he's like a 16-year-old boy with like alien powers and an alien background who's not even fully human. So it's going to be a little different, but at the same time, it felt a little accurate the way that he was handling things as like a teenager would. Like that's things that obviously again you have to remember when you are showing off these kind of things. And again, with representation it's the same way. Like everyone has a different experience. Like you can't invalidate one person's experience because you may not have had that same experience yourself. But even when it comes to like straight um straight writers and creators and things like that, it's because of that kind of thing where people in the community will kind of like not quite shut them down, but like belittle them and their work because of obviously like the fact that they're not actually part of the community is really bad and actually very hurtful. Because I have come across some straight writers on Twitter, for that matter, who have said that they have been wanting to write these kind of characters into their book, but because of how people react within our community, they are afraid to misrepresent us in even the smallest way possible. Like I've even had a few people ask me as a member of the community who like how would you go about writing this character in or how should I go about like um saying that this character is this without actually just saying it out loud. And I feel like that's kind of a sad thing that like they have to be this worried, but on one hand I do understand it because I do come across a very similar issue myself when it comes to content creation and creating characters and things like that. Because I know it's very important for inclusion and everything like that, but there are still certain things that I don't want to write about because it's not my experience, and I feel like that if I try to write those experiences, people won't be happy with it, knowing like that I'm basically a white queer person. Um, because like even my own writings, I have I have to like people of color, and I'm trying my best to make them as grounded and real as possible. But with one of my characters, I'm very worried that when people read her, they're not going to actually see it or think that I misrepresented her and her culture. Or even like,
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
when I was talking about writing the non-binary character and maybe like maybe doing like something that was intersex, and how like
Yeah.
Dax said that it would be cool, but then when I explained what the person was, how like they understood why I didn't really want to do it and why I was worried about that certain representation, because
Yeah.
essentially like this character wouldn't be able to like control their body. Their body would be doing stuff that um was out of their control. And I did do surface level research. I will say it's very surface level research on intersex as like what it is. And that was kind of a thing that people did feel is that their bodies were out of their control and doing things that again they couldn't control. And I'm just like I don't think it's safe making a character like this. At least to me.
Yeah.
It felt like it would have been
Yeah.
not quite bad. I wouldn't say bad representation, but like
Something people would get mad about.
exactly. Um,
That's one thing I kind of hate about like creating content and stuff even is like with art. Like
it's
I'm not
subjective.
necessarily a writer, but like art, it's a very similar thing where like even if you draw a character, like people will get offended. I've seen a lot of people of different races drawing people of their own race and getting crap on the internet from other people of their own race saying, you know, oh, you're misrepresenting this group when they're a part of that group. So like I think people at the same time need to take a step back a little bit before overreacting. You know, there are some genuinely bad representations, but because of different experiences and stuff, I think people need to learn to be just a little bit more forgiving and stop nitpicking like all the tiniest details.
I definitely do agree
Because
with
if
that
you
because like the biggest thing to me is like art is subjective as a whole, and it can be taken in many different ways. Like that's probably also the biggest issue too. With just how art can be taken as a whole, because leads to this biggest argument that a lot of people tend to have and make is do the authors, writers, artists' intentions truly matter in the end when what we see is what the fans what they derive from it. It's kind of a lot like vent art. How a lot of artists will make this to kind of like channel out what they're feeling to get out emotions and experiences and stuff like that. But then when they release it, people will may get the wrong idea about it or like berate them for that. Even when it comes to
yeah,
like styles, for that matter, because I know people will get upset when there are artists who will draw very like unrealistic body proportions and things like that, and it's like art is whatever
Hmm.
we make it, essentially. Like art is different for everyone, and if this is that person's style, then that's their style. What's the issue? Because there have been people who do a lot worse, for that matter. But it's
I think
definitely
that,
it's a
yeah,
fine
I
line.
can agree with that. But there is like such a thing as too far. As an artist and like LGBT representation, one example that always comes to mind to me right away is an art creator and content creator who I think isn't posting anymore. But RC Dart, they drew a lot of like trans Captain America stuff, and they went from like very this is like proportionally accurate or whatever to like okay, like this is reasonable to this is way over exaggerated. Not even a woman would have that sort of proportions. Like way exaggeratedly effeminate trans man that was getting really offensive.
Oh.
Hold on, I'll see if I can find a picture.
Uh,
Cause like it's really bad, and it's the same thing. Like they did a very similar thing with black people as well in their art representation, and it went from like their art went from this is acceptable to this is incredibly offensive to people in these communities.
Yeah. That's definitely where the fine line comes in right there. Like there's definitely a line from when it's being acceptable and then when it is definitely not acceptable.
Like here's a picture of the aftermath
Hmm.
art. I'll see if I can find a picture from before.
Uh
That's the after, and a lot of people like really upset. If I can find some other old art, you'll understand why people get upset.
yeah, I'd have to see the before artwork before I make judgments.
I'm looking. I don't know. They've basically like disappeared off the internet entirely after 2016.
Mm, okay. But yeah, that's there's definitely a responsibility on both the fans and the creators themselves that we do have to be conscientious enough of the world that we live in, the people within it, their backgrounds and everything.
Here's some art. I don't know if this is like an in between or whatever, but it's like a lot less overly exaggerated. And I mean, there are still some features that are exaggerated because it's a cartoony art style, but like here's one. Like you can see why people got offended. This is the same artist. Before, like after and then before is what I just sent.
It's not just a style change where they're trying to shift to a different style.
It's like there is stylistic change, but there's just like some of what they did like really offended people with just how it was done.
And how do you feel about this?
I mean, I personally don't I I mean, like there are a lot of effeminate trans guys, like don't get me wrong or whatever. But I don't know, when I look at the like before and after, I kind of feel like it's almost like sexualizing this sort of aspect of things, especially because like there are a lot of people who get really insecure about like certain aspects, especially like in the trans community. And there are people who are comfortable with it, but like for a lot of people this is just like unrealistic.
Okay, so as someone who genuinely tends to draw more cartoony when they are lazy, and someone who's been through something of a transition in their own artwork, not as a person, um, I'm not part of the trans community in that way. I am non-binary, but I am not like trans in that manner. Um, I can kind of overlook the kind of like changes in the style with the way that they are presenting the character personally, just because I've seen my own
Yeah.
artwork go through that where it's been super detailed and serious and things like that, like with the more earlier drawings, but then getting a little more like cartoony and not really, not, I wouldn't say
Yeah.
necessarily caring, but like just lazy maybe, or not quite as detailed. There's a word
I
for
don't,
it,
I don't mind.
but like I personally don't mind the top image you shared too much. Like I can see where it would be offensive, but like as someone who is like more of
Yeah.
a cartoon illustrator, it doesn't bother me that much to be entirely honest. Cuz I have also seen some
Oh yeah.
more
I don't
offensive
have to.
stuff, but like
Oh
eh,
yeah.
I can see why people
Yeah.
would get offended.
I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with the trans art, but like this controversy goes a lot deeper, and the next two images I'm sending are going to explain why. And like this is what bothers me is because they went from like here's a
Okay,
depiction of
that's
you know
different. That is very
yeah
different.
yeah
That
because
is
this artist is like
yeah,
Uh,
really
nope. I was
grounded in
waiting to hear that.
controversy.
I was waiting to hear that. I was waiting to hear that from Ruthless. Yep. I can
um,
definitely see the
Yeah
issue right there.
yeah. So you have people upset about like the trans art, and then what they did with their representation of black people as well is just the icing on the cake that really ruined the artist's career.
Right. Like,
See,
no,
there's a difference between like expressing an their style, and then there's just flat out like
racism.
ye-
offensive, racist, whatever. Like there's a line
There's definitely a line.
for everything.
Yeah, because looking at the like the trans work, like that. Okay, I can see why people would get offended, but like it doesn't bother me, especially with the outrageous body proportions. I mean, fucking look at Total Drama and things like Winx Club and tell me if those are actual like realistic proportions. No, they're not. They are exaggerated.
Yeah.
Or
No,
like Bratz.
my
Or
my art
even
my art style sometimes even gets that like weird proportions.
Exactly. You're going to see that in art. So like the proportions thing is just to me is a stupid argument because you're going to see all
Yeah,
manner of weird proportions when you draw cartoon art. So I don't think it's really fair to an extent, let me put that there, to an extent, to really hold an artist to being proportionally accurate, because how is that fun? That's never fun to draw.
no,
Unless you really want to go for the realism look, then it's not really fun to draw like realistic body proportions. It's fun to go crazy. I mean, I'm not gonna
yeah,
lie, personally, that's why I like the Steven Universe artwork because I could draw these like super buff women and thoroughly enjoy it. Like that to me was something you could never really achieve unless, a woman was on steroids maybe. But like it was fun to see like what you could draw these women as like very buff, and it was like fun. But no, that last image you shared, I can definitely see why that would have got like the artist canceled. That is that is a big yikes. I am just saying
Yeah.
that right now.
Yeah,
Like that's the
like
big
a what the
difference.
fuck moment.
That is a big what the fuck moment, and
Yeah.
it's like, excuse me, honey, what? No, you don't. That's a big
Yeah.
no. Again, like,
No, when I look at the trans art, I more so just see like, oh, pre-transition and like femboy.
exactly, like it goes. I feel like that kind of goes into like what you were saying earlier, Skull. How people just kind of like need to take a moment and chill for a little bit, because
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
it's not really that bad. The trans ones, I should say, is not really that bad. I understand that people do get a little insecure about, themselves. They may not be very secure about how they look or certain features about themselves and, things like that. But you also have to keep in mind that art is very subjective and
Oh
a
yeah.
person's style
Yeah.
changes so much. And if they're gonna go for like a more, because that's a cartoon style. I'm not even gonna lie, that is definitely a cartoon style that they were kind of going for in that first image you shared. And that stuff always has wild, exaggerated proportions. I mean, it wouldn't be cartoon if it really wasn't.
Yeah.
It's like, again, I can understand why people would think it was like, or see it as like bad representation. But personally, I didn't really see too much of an issue because, like, again, it's subjective, it's art, like, it's just, to me, a cartoon. It's a little silly, yes, but, like, I think that also kind of leads me into not all representation has to be taken super serious, and has to be,
Uh,
you know, that kind of thing. Like, it can be goofy, it can be fun, and that kind of stuff. Like, if it's always super serious, then what's the fun in it?
yeah. Another thing is like with the whole
Yeah.
villainizing characters and stuff. At the same time, like I understand it's like offensive to constantly villainize a group of characters or whatever, but at the same time, constantly having them be like the hero or be the good guy also can come off as like really,
Pandering.
really yikes.
Yeah, and to be
Mm-hmm.
fair, like even in writing a little bit, it has changed quite a bit where it's not always I'll be right there back. Hello. Um no, not you. But it's just you see a lot more changes when it comes to writing characters. You have your sympathetic villains, your anti-heroes, and kind of things like that, where you can still have more of your queer people amongst that. But even then, you still have people coming at you with like knives and daggers and threaten you like you better not do this to the gay character, or you know we better see this kind of thing. Like people have certain expectations when it comes to representation, because I know for example like Vivzy, when it comes to Stolas, I assume most of us have seen Hell of a Boss and know that in the show that
Yeah.
Stolas is the target of a hit because of his wife Stella. And a lot of people have been kind of like at Vivzy where they're like, you better not do the gays diet like the gays die in the end trope with Stolas, because again, it's a trope that's used often. Um, and kind of makes it a little sad for when it comes to representing gay characters, because it makes it feel like there's always going to be like a tragic end for them. But when you also think about death is a part of life, and it's like a
Yeah.
way to fully complete their story in a sense. Um, but
Yeah.
again, like
Mm-hmm.
these are things that
I
like
mean,
you just gotta keep in
another
mind.
another thing though is like with character deaths and stuff, it's like not all character deaths have to be bad deaths, but people are like, oh no, it's a character death, and like sometimes even if it's like a really noble, heroic death, like just because the character died, people overlook the real meaning of like why the character died, when there is that meaning.
Right. It's kind of like when you look to the Killing Stalking
Mm-hmm.
fandom, how everyone like was there was quite not everyone like there was a certain audience that was upset that Songwo had died at the end instead of getting together with Yunbom. And it's kind of implied that Yumbom also died when he ran into traffic at the end of the visual novel. But it's that just kind of thing where like people just don't see death for what it is. They just see it as the end. They're gone. Nothing else. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And again, like it kind of does go back to like kind of like the Hays Code kind of era and past that, where obviously like gay characters were not really allowed to exist outside of being villains, and if they ever were heroes, they usually had to die at the end to redeem themselves, to make up for their sin, essentially.
Yeah.
Which again, that's also never good. But again, like that's just how it was for like again like the early, in the 1900s essentially for America for the
That's
most
just
part.
what the norm was at the time.
It was. It very much was what the norm was, and the norm is changing. Obviously, we're still going to have people who try to stomp out the representation, who try to even villainize us still, even when media is trying to give us the representation that we need, or at least better representation, because we've had some degree of it. Again, it has come in the form of queer baiting in the past, looking at Disney's villains for that kind of thing. But then when we see like it's definitely not good now, where we have some content creators who have that power to create and get their works out, where they do sometimes do a bad job representing us, and then there's just some who just make a small mistake. There's all sorts of representation out there, and I'm going to be the first to say this, that sometimes bad representation can be good because it means people are seeing us. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of like how in advertising there's no such thing as bad advertising. When there's controversy around it, you're actually fueling it a lot more. The worst kind of attention you can give something is by ignoring it, because if you give it any attention, it already won, essentially.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do is just ignore it. But I will say, when it comes to representation, we are making strides. Rather, no, I wouldn't say slowly. When it comes to mainstream, it is a slow progress because, again, when it comes to the mainstream, we do have to keep in mind when it comes to like who's all gonna see this, where is it gonna be released, and things like that. But when you have things that are like more smaller scale or indie, I should say, it's a little bit easier to get away with those kind of things, especially when it comes to I'd almost say books, but you do see like the LGBT gay romance is a big thing amongst writing. It's actually something that straight women tend to eat up, unfortunately. But mainly in like shows and movies, we don't see it too much without having to read between the lines, unless it's something small. I'd say small again. It's something indie like Hell of a Boss, where it's like front stage and center, where we have Stolas and Blitz, and even Sally Mae for that matter, because Pop has confirmed that Sally Mae is trans. But like, it depends on where you get your representation from, your own experiences, and you do have to remember that all experiences are going to differ. Your experience will not be the same as mine, and mine won't be the same as yours. And it's just something that we do have to be respectful of when it comes to our representation and where we're getting it. And also, it doesn't just have to be queer people who represent us. There are straight people who are very capable of representing us. And I'm pretty sure there is a good portion of queer romances out there by big authors who are straight white women. I have no doubt of that. The romance genre is, I believe, mostly populated by female writers, but do not quote me on that, um, as it is something that usually is advertised towards women nonetheless. But representation does definitely come everywhere. There are still bad examples. We're still gonna see that there's gonna be people who just generally don't care and just want to write whatever character they want, without really considering, the community at large. I have come across
We're
some.
never
Go ahead.
gonna grow out of that, though. I don't think either.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's something that's always going to be around. And it's sad. Like I've seen some writers on Twitter who are like, "Oh yeah, I made the community mad, but who gives a flying fuck?" And I'm like, "That's not good, not at all." But then you have people who look to me and think that I'm too much of a chicken who won't write certain characters because I don't want to misrepresent them. Like when I was telling you guys earlier about intersex, writing an intersex character, I did not feel comfortable doing that because I didn't want to misrepresent the community. And Skull, just like Dax had said, I think it was Dax. I could be wrong, but how intersex people don't usually like it when other people that aren't intersex write about them. I believe it was
It's
Dax who
because
said that.
a lot, like, I believe with that, but the reason why a lot of intersex people get upset is because, like, when people who aren't intersex do the writing, a lot of the time it's either, like, fetishized or it's really bad representation.
Yeah. I know it's I think what also drove that nail home for me further is like I am part of like the Reddit, like the LGBT community Reddit, and I saw on the intersex ones like can the non-intersex people just leave us alone? I'm like, okay, that just sells it for me. I'm not gonna do this. Is you just really gotta be careful about what you do and how you go about it. Definitely do your research for that matter. If you are going to write, create, or anything that's like not even just LGBT, but like other cultures and things like that, it's definitely a good idea to do as much research as possible and not just surface level research because that is never enough. I'm going to say that
Yeah.
now. Like it's best to like interview people who are these kind of things, experience the culture, or not really. You can't really experience gay exactly, but like just converse with people who are that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly, admittedly, I was writing, I was considering doing like a a trans character, but I was like, kind of back in my head, I'm like, I should talk about like ask a few things from like of like one of my friends that went is like going through the same transition that went through the same transition. And I talked to her with that whole thing, and I try to get as much data as possible and then move upon that because I never went through that, and I will never be able to go through that. But I want
Yeah,
to
big
study.
respect. Big respect, Ruthless.
Yes,
You
big
have just
respect.
become my best friend.
That's
I
exactly
I
what you need
just
to do.
I just find that like it's kind of just hard to grasp personally of like trying to grasp someone else's experience if I want to at least do a decent job of showing it or hinting something like that. I'd much rather get data to do it and get something that could hint it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And again, that just like it brings up what we were mentioning earlier that like no two experiences are going to be exactly alike. And just because you
Mm-hmm.
don't quite experience something doesn't mean someone else can't. It's a lot like people who are arrow ace or just arrow or ace. Like it's very complicated trying to understand what those type of people feel and what they experience for that matter. Like trying to explain that I am what I am is not something a lot of people will understand. Like, I even told one of my new managers what my what I am, and she actually well I'm gonna say she found it how what's the word I'm looking for
Confusing.
confusing and incredible the fact that someone could feel essentially nothing and like her wording could come off as a little wrong to some people, but like it's not because it kind of is feeling nothing, no attraction essentially. I mean, obviously you can still feel love and have a fucking sex drive, but not everyone will. It's like, yeah, it definitely is hard when it comes to that matter. It's definitely not easy trying to understand something that you'll never actually experience.
Whoops. Sorry, plugging in my headset instead.
Good. But no, yeah, just representation as a whole is something that would be difficult to fully pin down, but like you just gotta like remember that you're not always going to represent everyone, essentially.
Honestly, at the end of the day, the real victory should be the fact that people are trying to represent.
Exactly. And as long as they try to do it in a good light, that's what matters. Certain writers and creators should keep in mind that like they do need that some of them it feels like they're trying to harm the community and they need to stop and stop trying to come up with excuses essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what do you guys
I
think?
now kind of feel bad for I now kind of feel bad for my plan with my character in the story I'm writing, but at the same time, like it's a character that I created based off of my own experiences. Just well, Lotus, I've told you about the Forgottens, right?
Yeah.
The story I'm writing with
Yes.
help from a few friends. Yes. With this whole like representation and misrepresentation thing, I'm now starting to worry that maybe people are gonna get upset with like some of the topics I want to talk about. But
Okay.
like the experiences and stuff are like based off of my experiences, and also like other experiences and stuff that I've like heard of. And you know, it's gonna be a heavy story.
Right.
Yeah, I can
And
see. Yeah, but
it's a story I want to tell, but at the same time, like, I know there are going to be people who get upset.
I definitely feel that.
But at
Yeah.
the same time, like, I don't want to back out and just, like, play it safe.
What's the no pain, no gain?
Yeah, exactly.
also I would research and like I've even a little bit doing a little bit of research for a character that I was considering making about his doing a little bit of research of hearing about other people's stories with this character I was making. Other character, just a normal like character with some of my experience, but I had to tweak it a bit. Like I try and make characters that very distant, but some similarities where I can like work off of. And I try to at least make it very different.
Right. Well, I will say this. How are we all feeling about this point?
Um, I could keep talking, but, like, I feel like you guys would need to also, like, it'd have to be, like, a mutual conversation point at this point.
Yeah.
It says the one that's quiet. Uh, I'm kind of reaching my end here only because I'm having some slight pain.
And
So I'm feeling good to end here. What about you
Yeah,
guys?
yeah, I'm kind of at my end.
I'm
A
good at
while
my
ago.
end.
You haven't said anything,
I was about to
Raptor.
say you hit your end a while ago. You've just been sitting here
Yeah.
along for the ride.
I'm
Well,
excited
then again,
for
I don't
next
really.
week's episode, though.
Fingers crossed you can
It,
join us.
Well, I'll be here because it's Wednesday, right? And I'm not leaving until Friday for next week.
Oh, perfect. All right, but
Yeah,
then
it's the week after that I might not be able to join because that'll be the week I'm camping for.
okay. All right then. Well,
But
And also, yeah, maybe. Yes, I'm leaving for a different country this Saturday, so
So it's Raptor we might not have. Okay.
yeah, depending on circumstances and internet, whatever else, I may or may not join podcasts until early July.
Okay. Well, this has been a fun episode, and we will be back next week at the same time with most of the crew. Most of the crew. But everyone have a good night, day, or evening.
Good night, fellow gamers.
See ya.
See you later.